Chapter 144. Genius 1 Second Remember, providing you with exciting novels to read. As everyone knew, the sword was light and agile, while the blade was heavy and heavy. In the Chinese martial arts system, strength, technique, and speed restrained each other. When fighting with an armed enemy barehanded, the advantage was that one's attack speed was fast, and one could use all sorts of techniques to capture the enemy. Therefore, against skill-based weapons or speed-based attacks, one could gain an advantage barehanded. There was even a professional technique called barehanded blade catching. But if it was a strength-type weapon, it would be a little helpless to catch a blade barehanded. After all, no idiot would dare to catch a mace barehanded. Therefore, against heavy weapons, one had to rely on speed to cut in and capture. However, as a boss, the Scorpion King not only swung the scimitar in its hand extremely fast, making it impossible for Wang Yu to find an opening to capture. Moreover, the Scorpion King's attacks were also very powerful. Under the suppression of strength and speed, no matter how good one's technique was, if one tried to snatch the weapon barehanded, they would only end up as a second-class cripple. In desperation, Wang Yu took out his weapon. It was not warrior's persistence, but two swords, one long and one short. To be precise, it was a dagger and a one-handed sword. These two swords, one long and one short, were picked by Wang Yu from Tia's blacksmith shop in Titan City. They were ordinary white equipment, and their attributes were garbage. However, they had a special characteristic, and that was that the handguard was very strange. It was curved, very long, and looked like a fork. In Wang Yu's professional eyes, this was called a long and short sword, also known as the jagged sword. It was a type of swordsmanship. The long sword was used for attack, while the short sword was used for defense. The top and bottom corresponded, and the left and right corresponded. It was a very technical swordsmanship. The design of the handguard and the two swords could block and capture the enemy's weapon very well. It had an additional effect against people whose strength and speed far exceeded the user. However, this swordsmanship required high coordination between the left and right hands. Even if a grandmaster of combat was proficient in both hands, coordination was like the left and right hand combat in wuxia novels. The system could not make up for it. Therefore, there were only 3 people in the world who were proficient in this swordsmanship, and one of them was Wang Yu. It was not that Wang Yu wanted to show off by abandoning the staff and using the sword, but that the Scorpion King's blade was too strange. The long staff was mainly used for defense, and could only be used to block. Against a scimitar that could even heal a broken hand, it was more effective to use the lock snatch. The Scorpion King was an NPC that could not even be considered a Western fantasy NPC. How could he have ever seen such a strange machine? He continued to swing his scimitar. Wang Yu extended the sword in his right hand and turned the hilt slightly. The sword's guard blocked the Scorpion King's scimitar. Then, Wang Yu's body turned 90 degrees close to the Scorpion King. His left hand flipped backward, and the short blade in his hand stabbed into the Scorpion King's heart. 1014, it couldn't be helped, this was a game. Even if he stabbed the boss's heart or throat, it would only be a fatal attack. The attributes of the two white equipment were truly disgusting. It looked like the stab was very heavy, but in reality, the damage was only that much. The Scorpion King felt the pain. It pulled out its scimitar and turned to slash at the back of Wang Yu's waist. Wang Yu grabbed the short blade and blocked it. The guard once again blocked the Scorpion King's scimitar. At the same time, Wang Yu wrapped the sword in his right hand around the Scorpion King's neck and slashed it. 1245 The Scorpion King was hit twice in a row. It suddenly jumped back and scattered a handful of sand in the air with its empty hand. It then disappeared. Wang Yu smiled and crossed his two swords in the air. His hands pulled back, and a scimitar was locked in the guard of the two swords. Wang Yu then stomped on the Scorpion King's body, and the Scorpion King was kicked out. Before the Scorpion King could recover, two swords, one long and one short, suddenly appeared in front of the Scorpion King. One was stabbed in the Scorpion King's throat, and the other was stabbed in the Scorpion King's heart. 1014-1125 Despicable bastard! I will hang your head on my scimitar. The Scorpion King roared. With a wave of its hand, the scimitar flew back to its hand. It then charged at Wang Yu at an extremely fast speed and started fighting. The two broken swords did not have high attack power, but Wang Yu's uneven swordsmanship was really powerful. Wang Yu, who was originally being suppressed, could attack and defend with both swords. He could always block the Scorpion King's quick slashes at the right time and counterattack at the same time. Wang Yu and the Scorpion King fought each other. Not only did the strong buffs on the desert bandits disappear, but they also ran out of manpower. Under the relentless attack of the 300 players, the number of desert bandits decreased rapidly. Not long after, only a few desert bandits were left. The players also saw Wang Yu playing with the boss at the back of the desert bandits. Damn, that bastard didn't run. He went to distract the boss. When Wang Yu tried his best to break out of the encirclement, the players thought that he had run away with the escorted items. Who knew that he was going to fight the boss one-on-one? I see. No wonder these monsters are so much weaker. As expected of the number 1 player. He's really brave. The players came to a realization and looked at Wang Yu with admiration. His courage alone was enough to make the players sigh in admiration. It was a one-on-one fight against the boss, and a gold-tier boss at that. Everyone here was an expert, but no one dared to say that they were brave enough to do it themselves. Damn, am I seeing things? That boss doesn't look like he's going to make it. Gradually, when the players realized that Wang Yu was not distracting the boss, but was suppressing the boss, they were all dumbfounded. They all stared at Wang Yu, observing him very carefully. They saw that the 2 swords in Wang Yu's hands were extremely nimble. He flipped up and down, stabbed left and right. Every time he attacked, he dealt more than 1,000 damage to the Scorpion King. The poor Scorpion King was like a powerless child. No matter how he struggled, the scimitar in his hand was still stuck. Wang Yu's sword stabbed his vitals again and again, but there was nothing he could do. Even if he turned invisible, he would still be stabbed. He could not run even if he wanted to. Damn, it's true. He's torturing the boss. The players could not believe their eyes. They were all experts with powerful equipment. It was not difficult for them to solo a small boss. However, when they saw Wang Yu's skills, everyone except for Mingdu, who was familiar with Wang Yu, was shocked. That was a gold-tier boss. How could it be so useless in his hands? Could it be that the monsters we're fighting are different from the ones he's fighting? Heroes of Heaven, who had just thought that Wang Yu's reputation was undeserved and that he had sold himself as a slave, was shocked to the extreme. As a manual mode player, Heroes of Heaven's skill was quite high. Otherwise, he would not be the number 1 expert of a big guild like Unparalleled Under Heaven. That was why Heroes of Heaven was a very arrogant person. In his view of the game, there were 3 types of people: experts, players, and trash. Originally, he thought that Wang Yu was an expert and had the ability to fight him. When he heard that Wang Yu was someone else's bodyguard, he listed Wang Yu as trash who was not worthy to be his opponent. However, when he saw Wang Yu's skills, Heroes of Heaven finally understood what it meant to be a frog in a well. In reality, the 2 of them were still not worthy to be opponents. However, the difference in strength between the 2 had changed. So Boss Iron Ox uses dual swords. A veteran Japanese manga fan cried out in surprise. Mingdu pretended to be profound and boasted. That's right, Grandpa Nyo is the master of dual swords. Young man, your bones are amazing. Wow, dual swords, dual swords. Hearing this, the young man became excited. He raised his arms and shouted. Scientific research had proven that when humans were in a state of surprise, they would do things that even they themselves did not know about. When the young man shouted, the others also shouted. Chapter 145. It was common knowledge for a boss to transform into a red blood state, and these players were very familiar with it. However, they did not understand how this boss had transformed into something that could make the powerful Iron Ox suddenly run away. When Wang Yu and the boss got close to the crowd, the players discovered that the 2 weapons in Wang Yu's hands had been cut in half, leaving only the hilts. They looked at the Scorpion King. Its appearance had not changed, but the golden scimitar in its hand had turned black, sword of the king. Minis, level 35, Gold Boss, HP, for 8258 MP. 1, 245 skills. Temporal Sand, Concealment Sand Sword of the King. Gives the Great King minis the power to cut through everything. The Scorpion King's attributes did not change much. It lost its battle formation skill and gained the Sword of the King buff. The power to cut through everything. When the players saw this buff, they looked at Wang Yu, who was holding the hilt of the sword. Their foreheads were instantly covered with a layer of cold sweat. What a King scam. Do I have to give up a weapon for a quest? In the time it took for them to be stunned, Wang Yu had already run into the attack range of the players. However, no one dared to move, afraid that their weapons would be cut in half. "God, Iron Ox, I'm here to help you." When the Japanese comic fan saw his idol running over, he let out a loud roar and rushed forward with his sword to support Wang Yu. "Get out of the way." Wang Yu's left hand suddenly grabbed the Japanese comic fan's neck and pressed down. At that moment, a black blade flashed and cut off the Japanese comic fan's weapon that was raised high in the air. Wang Yu pushed the fan back, and at the same time, he kicked the Scorpion King in the chest, causing it to take 2 steps back. "Melee players, don't come over. Use ranged attacks," Wang Yu shouted at the players. When the ranged players heard this, they hurriedly took out their staffs and bows and aimed at the Scorpion King. The Scorpion King's scimitar danced wildly, blocking the magic arrows. The Scorpion King's sword buff was indeed overbearing. It was one thing for the arrows to be cut in half, but even the magic spells were cut in half. He really didn't understand the logic behind it. Hiss! This was the first time the players had fought with the Scorpion King, and they all sucked in a breath of cold air. They all looked at Wang Yu. God, Iron Ox had just fought with this kind of monster? Control him. At this time, Mingdo shouted. Against this kind of humanoid boss, using violence to counter violence was far less reliable than using control. The Warlock and the Shield Warrior shook their heads repeatedly. The Warlock's distortion skill had a pre-chant. With the Scorpion King's speed, as long as it took 2 steps back, it would be out of range. As for Shield Warriors, it was even more impossible. The King's Sword's buff could cut through iron swords, so it could also cut through iron shields. No one was willing to bet their livelihood on luck. Mingdu, didn't you say that you were going to take the lead this time? Here's your chance to shine. The one who spoke was the wizard Dustless. Dustless hated Mingdu to begin with, and when he saw Mingdu's AoE magic just now, he went crazy with jealousy. At this time, he couldn't help but start mocking Mingdu. That's right. When Mingdu heard this, he smiled sinisterly. He bent over, grabbed a handful of sand, and threw it at Dustless's face. Dustless became dust. Everyone was speechless. Throwing sand. This was a move that only children would use in a fight. At this time, Mingdu quickly moved in front of Dustless and pointed the staff in his hand. With a flash of light, Mingdu teleported in front of Wang Yu. The Scorpion King teleported into the crowd of players. F***CK. The players turned pale with fright and hurriedly retreated. Dustless was blinded by the sand and didn't know what was happening around him. In the end, he was still cursing, "Son of a B***, do you dare to go solo?" Before Dustless could finish speaking, a black light flashed, and his whole body was cut in 2 by the Scorpion King. At the same time, Mingdu roared at the crowd. "What the F***CK are you looking at? Hurry up and control it." The Scorpion King was right in front of them, and they didn't know who it would attack next. None of the players dared to be negligent. They could only brace themselves and throw distortion and use shield bash. As a boss, although the Scorpion King was subject to control, it had a very high immunity to control. The distortion that could freeze a player for 3 seconds didn't even have a second of effect when thrown at the Scorpion King's feet. The Shield Warrior's 1 second of stun didn't even have an effect. The Scorpion King was slightly stunned, and it was about to go berserk and attack people again. Fortunately, there were 7 or 8 Warlocks among the players. The Warlock class was also quite useless, so there weren't many who could play until level 20. Everyone was an expert player. Although they were panicking at this time, their timing was still very accurate. Each person used a distortion and used skills at the right time, completely freezing the Scorpion King on the spot. When the others saw that the Scorpion King was controlled, they all went forward. The past boss with less than 50,000 HP was cut into pieces by the players in a flash, and a golden weapon fell to the ground. It dropped something. Everyone was overjoyed. Quest bosses rarely dropped items that weren't quest items. Mingdu reacted quickly. Just as the innermost player was about to bend down to pick it up, Mingdu used Guardian Switch, moved over, and reached out to catch the weapon. Temporal Sand, Warblade, Silver, Attack, 31-47 mana, 22-35 plus 7 agility plus 6 strength Sword of the King. Passive skill, 30% chance to cut equipment of a lower grade than this weapon. Temporal Sand, active skill. The Scorpion King signed a contract with the demon god, Stealing Time. Can restore damage within 3 seconds. Class requirement, common level requirement. One Mingdu picked up the weapon, glanced at it, and displayed its attributes. When the players saw this weapon, they all started drooling. Although this weapon was only silver, it was more powerful than most gold weapons at this stage. After all, silver weapons were still very rare at this stage. Before silver equipment became common, Sword of the King was practically a godly skill. Temporal Sand was even more disgusting. It was practically a nightmare for assassins who dealt damage with explosive attacks. As long as the enemy was still breathing, you wouldn't be able to kill them. It was too shameless. The players were naturally not happy that such a good item fell into Mingdu's hands. He didn't do anything at all, and he even caused the death of one of his companions. If he dared to be thick-skinned and keep it, everyone would definitely beat him into ashes. Old cow, it's yours. As if feeling everyone's hostile gazes, Mingdu held the sword hilt upside down and threw the temporal sand to Wang Yu. Seeing that the weapon was given to Wang Yu, everyone's mood improved a lot. Although there were still some complaints, no one dared to say it. After all, the Scorpion King was a person, and Wang Yu had killed it alone. While saving so many people, he had also destroyed 2 weapons. If even Wang Yu didn't deserve this weapon, then the others were even less qualified. Wang Yu took the sword and didn't even look at it. He casually threw it to the young Japanese manga fan. Thank goodness you were here just now. Your weapon is gone, so you can have this sword, Wang Yu said. If the Japanese manga fan hadn't blocked the sword for Wang Yu, the Scorpion King's sword would definitely have slashed at Wang Yu. The young Japanese manga fan was flattered. He trembled as he touched the temporal sand and said, "Nyo-shun, didn't you lose your weapon too?" Wang Yu smiled and threw the sword hilt on the ground. It's just 2 white swords. I'll buy 2 more later. White swords. Everyone used their appraisal skills on the 2 sword hilts. The system showed, broken iron sword this. The players were so shocked that they couldn't speak coherently. They thought that Wang Yu dared to challenge the boss because he must have a divine weapon in his hands. Who knew that he would be able to stab the boss to red blood with just 2 white swords? Chapter 146. Genius 1 Second Remember, providing you with exciting novels to read. After crossing the barren hills, they arrived at the Radiant Crusades territory. There were no traces of the Dark Army behind them. They did not encounter any ambushes even when they reached the Crusades camp. Literature building along the way, the players no longer looked down on Wang Yu. Instead, they felt more at ease when they saw Wang Yu behind them. After all, in the game, the strong were always respected, and the fist was the law. Such a strong person was definitely in existence equivalent to a nuclear deterrent. Arriving at the Radiant Crusades camp, Wang Yu hurriedly put on his mask. Although he did not know if the faction honor was useful in the city of Nifas, Wang Yu carried 200 light faction honor points. If he really walked into the light camp openly, it would be too arrogant. The players who arrived safely at the camp had thought that the mission was over. They were just about to let out a long sigh of relief when a system notification suddenly appeared, making everyone feel gloomy. System notification. You have activated the hidden mission Temptation of the Dark Demon King. Temptation of the Dark Demon King. Help the Dark Demon God obtain the soul of the Dark Demon King Francis. Mission level. Unknown. Mission reward. Complete the advancement and job change immediately. 100 honor points of the Dark Army. special reward of the Dark Demon King. Everyone was at a loss when they received the notification 100 honor points, a special reward. Actually, these were all fake. This was because the other name of the special reward was random reward. 99% of the random rewards were trash. 100 honor points was not very attractive to the players who yearned for the light faction. The key was that they could directly complete the promotion quest. In fact, the level 20 promotion quest wasn't that difficult. In fact, it was quite simple. The reason why the players were so afraid of it was that the quest was quite complicated. It was similar to the quest in turn-based online games. There were more than 20 rounds of quests. Burning point cards was a small matter, but the 20-round mission might have to fly to 20 main cities, all of which were to escort rations and find dogs and cats. If they failed, they would have to start all over again. Such a scam could not be completed without 2 or 3 days. 2 or 3 days was enough for a player to be much ahead of others in the game. What everyone was at a loss was that the people who activated this mission were all players doing the advancement mission. Wang Yu was not one of the people doing the advancement mission, so he definitely did not receive it. Were they going to make an enemy out of Wang Yu? Or was it a gamble? Wang Yu's deterrence was too strong, even to his own people. More than 200 people were afraid of one person. Perhaps even they themselves felt that it was a little inconceivable. What happened to you guys? Why are you looking at me like that? Wang Yu's senses were very sensitive, and he instantly sensed that something was wrong with everyone. Mingdu copied the system notification to the public chat and said, "Did you see that? The system wants us to fight among ourselves." Wang Yu was speechless as he looked at the crowd. He then pointed at Eternal Silence, Dawn, and the others and said, "If my mission was only to protect these 4 young masters, I might have given this item to you. Truth be told, this is also my goal." "That's great. Since that's the case, why don't we just return to the Dark Army's camp to complete the mission after snatching the mission item?" The group shouted excitedly, thinking that Wang Yu was one of them. "No, I'm using it for my own use, not for the Dark Army," Wang Yu said truthfully. "For your own use?" The group fell silent again. They had accepted a group mission, while Wang Yu's was an individual mission. It was completely different. Mingdu said, "I think it's better for you guys to play it safe. The advancement mission is troublesome, but not difficult. If you want to start from scratch, don't blame me for not reminding you." As he spoke, Mingdu took the lead and clicked no on the dialog box to activate the mission. Mingdu's meaning was very clear. He did not want everyone to think that they were lucky. Otherwise, if they died and failed the mission, they would have to start from scratch and go for wool and come home shorn. Mingdu's words were kind, but he was not a person who was well-liked. His tone was also so forceful, and it immediately caused everyone to be unhappy. A warrior pointed at Mingdu and provoked, "Look at how arrogant you guys are. Do you guys from Chuanjin really think you can go to heaven? We have close to 300 people, and we can't beat the 2 of you? Isn't that right, everyone? We're all level 20. Let's see who's afraid of who." If he wanted to provoke, he could just provoke, and he even encouraged others. What made Mingdu even angrier was that there were 2 people next to that person who echoed him. Everyone was provoked by the 3 people, and they immediately flared up. They stared murderously at Wang Yu and Dustless, as if they wanted to kill them. Mingdu glanced at those people's chests and realized that those 3 people's badges were exactly the same as Dustless's. He immediately understood. With a wave of his hand, a fire was thrown at the feet of the 3 people, burning them to death. Then, he said coldly, "I advise everyone to think about it again. This was the difference between Mingdu and Wang Yu. If it were Wang Yu, he would feel comfortable in his heart and definitely would not force others to do anything. If they wanted to kill him, he would accept it. For a real villain like Mingdu, directly killing people and threatening them, the effect was much better. As expected, everyone calmed down after being burned by Mingdu's fire. F***CK. This B***TCH's magic damage is actually so high, even a warrior can be insta-killed. And it's a F***King AoE magic. We can't even deal with this guy. How are we supposed to deal with the stronger one behind? Even if we can forcefully kill the 2 of them, it would probably be a lose-lose situation. People who played games generally only cared about their personal interests. If this mission had a 90% survival rate, these people might still give it a shot. However, even the most basic success rate could not be guaranteed, so no one dared to joke around with their own interests after thinking about it. The players sighed and chose to compromise. All right, I refuse the temptation of the Dark Demon King. Under the leadership of Heroes of the World, everyone clicked no on the box. Thank you, everyone. Eternal Silent Dawn and the other three saw that the players chose to submit under the threat of Wang Yu and Dustless, and their hearts that were hanging in the air finally relaxed. It's our duty, it's our duty. Everyone's faces were a little flushed. Actually, they just didn't do anything. Boss Mingdu, Boss Iron Ox, thank you so much. Eternal Silent Dawn ran over to Mingdu and Wang Yu to express his gratitude. Wang Yu said indifferently, "Actually, I did it for myself." Mingdu said, "Don't say useless things. I gave up such an awesome quest for you. You should at least compensate me a little." Of course, of course." Eternal Silent Dawn's expression froze, and he said through gritted teeth. At the same time, Eternal Silent Dawn slapped himself in his heart. "Motherfucker, why did I have to touch the blade? If I ever speak to Mingdu again, I'll die a cheap death." The final hurdle was easily passed, and everyone was happy. Eternal Silent Dawn and the other three happily led Wang Yu and Mingdu into the Crusader leader Alex's tent. Alex was a very dignified military officer, but at this time, Alex was only dressed in plain clothes in his own tent. He was not wearing any armor, nor was he carrying any weapons. This gave Wang Yu a little more confidence in her plan to rob Wang Yu of the treasure. Praise the God of Light for having such loyal believers like you. Alex took the bottle from Eternal Silent Dawn's hand and praised his God who did nothing but cause trouble. With a wave of his hand, a holy light sprinkled down, and everyone received a notification that the quest had been completed. Mingdo shot Wang Yu a look, and Wang Yu nodded. Then, she dashed forward and slammed her fist into Alex's face. Alex's head swayed slightly from the impact, and he almost fell to the ground. Chapter 147. Genius 1 Second Remember, providing you with exciting novels to read. Alex did not expect Wang Yu to suddenly launch an attack. He immediately yelled, "Assassination!" The system NPCs were truly amazing. Although Alex's voice was not loud, it had the effect of a loudspeaker. The Holy Crusaders in the camp swarmed over as soon as they heard Alex's voice. At the same time, the players received a quest from Eternal Dawn in the party channel. Party quest: stop the Crusaders before Alex dies in battle. Quest reward: 10 gold coins. Holy Crusader, LV25. Elite, HP, 50,000 MP, 20,000 skills. Holy Stab, Paladin's Charge. Heal the players had completed their escort quest. It did not matter if they died now. Under the temptation of 10 gold coins, everyone got into formation and protected Alex's tent. Like dungeon monsters, the Holy Crusaders were determined by the opponent's level. The players were all level 20, while the Holy Crusaders were level 25. Moreover, the 3 skills of the Holy Crusaders were also common. Apart from their thick defense, there was nothing special about them. The shield bearers blocked the Holy Crusaders' charge. With the crowd control and damage dealers in the back, they easily kept the Holy Crusaders at bay. Inside the tent, Alex's expression was ferocious. He pointed at Wang Yu with a trembling finger, as if he could not believe that the people of God would commit such a treacherous act. When Wang Yu attacked Alex, she had left the party, so she didn't get involved in the battle with Bright City, Eternal Dawn, and the others. The 5 of them surrounded Alex, ready to help at a moment's notice. Holy Crusader Commander Alex, LV35, Silver Boss, Elite, HP, 200,000 MP, 50,000 skills, cross/. Holy Light / Wang Yu was surprised to see Alex's attributes. After all, even a big shot like Arceus had appeared in this quest. Yet here he was, meeting a silver boss without any equipment. Little did he know that this was the breakthrough point of this quest. Alex had always lived like a prince and would only wear his equipment when he was in combat. If Wang Yu fought his way through, Alex would wear his equipment when Wang Yu was fighting the Crusaders. When Alex was equipped, he would be a gold rank boss. Therefore, he could not force his way through this mission. He could only sneak in, and Wang Yu was openly sneaking in. Alex pointed at Wang Yu and said, "Damned heretic! God has been merciful to you, yet you betrayed God." Wang Yu curled his lips. "You're really uncultured. That's all you've got to say. I thought you were going to say something like, 'Why would a beautiful woman become a thief?' I will judge you on behalf of God." Alex roared. He turned around and ran toward the corner of the wall. The corner of the wall was where Alex's armor and longsword were. How could Wang Yu let him wear his clothes? He followed up with a burst fist and reached out to grab Alex's shoulder. Alex shrugged his shoulders and tried to fling Wang Yu aside, but Wang Yu's palm was attached to Alex's body. No matter how hard he tried, he could not shake Alex off. Alex had no choice but to turn around and fight Wang Yu with his fists. Alex was a warrior NPC. Everyone knew that a master swordsman was not necessarily strong with his fists and legs. For example, Ling Hu Chong. Alex's swordsmanship was no match for young hero Ling Hu Chong, let alone his fists and legs. His skills like cross slash and holy light slash all required a weapon to unleash in the eyes of martial arts master Wang Yu. The unskilled Alex was no different from a normal person. He was just a little more resistant to beatings. Alex threw a heavy punch. Wang Yu grabbed his wrist with his left hand and flipped it backward. He then kicked Alex's calf with thunder stomp, causing Alex to kneel on the ground. 21 89-inch damn it. Alex was still a boss. He immediately quick recovered and stood up. He swung his fist again. Wang Yu grabbed Alex's wrist again. His right hand supported Alex's armpit, and he used the force of the impact to lift Alex up. Alex was thrown to the ground for the second time. 2164 the third time. It was still a heavy punch. Alex was thrown to the ground. Then, Wang Yu kicked the back of his head twice. 1687 2222 2333 100 additional damage. The fourth time, Alex was thrown to the ground, and his chest was stomped twice. The fifth time, face stomped. The sixth time, ribs stomped. Wang Yu threw and hit Alex, causing his HP to drop rapidly. In the corner, eternal silence, and the other three were completely dumbfounded. The four of them already knew that Wang Yu was a monster, but they did not expect Wang Yu to be this crazy. Alex was a silver elite boss, but he was thrown to the ground like a dead dog by Wang Yu, not even in the same position. Eternal Silence was a veteran player and had seen a lot of things. However, he had lived for almost 30 years, and he had never seen a boss with no dignity like this. It seemed like Alex only knew this one trick. Wang Yu is helpless against this one-track-minded guy. He's quite spirited, it's just that he's a little weak. Wang Yu took the time to comment, "Damn you. You freak. You scare me to death." The four holy light young masters were so shocked that tears streamed down their faces. They were glad that they did not make an enemy out of Wang Yu. Otherwise, they would have ended up just like Alex. After being tortured by Wang Yu in various positions, Alex's HP finally dropped to 30%. He immediately yelled and stood up from under Wang Yu's feet. Wang Yu quickly jumped back and said to himself, "He's going to transform." However, Alex did not transform. He glared at Wang Yu, turned around, and rushed to the corner again. Everyone was speechless. This boss seemed to be a little stubborn. Why was he so fixated on the equipment set? The more Alex behaved this way, the more important the equipment in the corner was to him. Naturally, Wang Yu wouldn't allow him to equip the equipment. So, she used Twilight Leap to appear behind Alex and reached out to grab him. She didn't expect Alex to be in his super armor state, so she couldn't hold it back at all. Ouch! Wang Yu almost fell to the ground after being pulled by Alex. This was retribution for underestimating an NPC. A Grandmaster of Combat's knee strike could break super armor, but the knee strike skill was a little special, and that was the prerequisite action of extending one's hand. If the monster was coming at him head-on, he could naturally grab it in his arms. However, if the monster wanted to escape, it would be difficult to deal with. This was especially true when Alex was moving so fast that Wang Yu could not even catch up to him, let alone use a knee strike on him. Chapter 148. Genius 1 Second Remember, providing you with exciting novels to read. Of course, Wang Yu's shout was not directed at Eternal Silence and the others. He was a citizen of the Holy City. Offending Alex was equivalent to offending the Pope, and offending the Pope was equivalent to offending himself. Disregarding his own interests for the sake of his friends? What a joke. Wang Yu was not that close to them. Moreover, they were in the game. Even if their fathers were in different factions, they still had to draw their weapons when they saw each other. Wang Yu's shout was directed at Mingdu. Hee, no matter how great you are, you still need to rely on Uncle Li at the crucial moment. Mingdu chuckled and locked his staff on Alex. Alex, who was just about to touch his beloved armor, suddenly appeared not far away from Wang Yu with a dumbfounded look on his face without a word. Wang Yu rushed over and struck Alex with a knee strike, breaking his mighty armor. Then he slashed at Alex's throat with a knife hand strike, followed by a horizontal knee strike. Grabbing onto Alex, he did not give him a chance to escape. With his mighty armor broken, Alex lost all hope. He shouted, "May the divine light God be with me," and took out the small bottle to destroy it. With quick reflexes, Wang Yu reached out and grabbed Alex's wrist. She slammed him onto the table beside her, causing the small bottle to fall out of Alex's hand. Wang Yu casually scooped it up and threw it in her bag. Alex turned into a white light and returned to the divine light God's embrace. System notification. You have killed Crusader Commander Alex. Light faction, honor -200. Current status is unforgivable evil. Dark faction, honor -100. Current status is friendly. Citywide announcement. Player, Iron Bull has killed Alex, the commander of the Crusaders. Due to the player's repeated provocations, God is enraged. The Light faction has awarded him 200 glory points and the title of Holy Warrior. F***CK. The players who were fighting outside the encampment were dumbfounded when they saw the notification. Damn it, those two bastards from Chuanjin went to kill the commander. Aren't we accomplices? Accomplices my ass. Neoshun left the team right from the start so that we wouldn't be dragged into this mess. The Japanese manga fan said, "Oh, since those two are in the camp, doesn't that mean we're in a favorable position?" That makes sense. When Eternal Dawn saw the message, he hurriedly warned, "Boss Iron Ox, you need to run. They're about to betray us." Wang Yu said lightly, "It doesn't matter. Our helpers are here." Chuanjin Guild Channel Wuji. The commander was really killed by you too? Yes. He wasn't wearing any clothes. Wang Yu answered honestly. If Alex had been wearing equipment, he would not have been able to kill him so easily. He's not wearing any clothes. Chun Xiang touched on Wang Yu's words and said with a smile, "There's something fishy about it." Mingdu scolded, "Trick your sister. It's because I'm not wearing any equipment. Old cow, can you not let this wretched person catch you at the end of your words? Are you two okay?" Bao San asked with concern. "We're fine," Mingdu said proudly. "If it wasn't for me, something would have happened." In Lao Air, sigh, what a pity. To place one's pride. I told you Uncle Neo is better than you trash. Wherever he goes, there's a bloodbath, famous sword Dao Shui. T-Sich in the end, we still have to clean up after him. Wang Yu said angrily, "Clean up after him, cut the crap, and come to the camp." While they were talking, the players outside the tent rushed in. Due to the formation they were in just now, the first to reach the entrance were the mages and archers. These fragile players. Hellfire. Rise. Mingdu waved his staff, and a pillar of fire rose into the sky. The fragile players at the entrance felt their feet heat up and turned into white light. "Let's go." Wang Yu rushed out with light, leap, collapsing fist, and Mingdu followed closely behind. As soon as Wang Yu rushed out the entrance, a row of warriors raised their shields and rammed into him. F***CK. Wang Yu was in the air and had no way to borrow strength, so he could only brace himself and ram into the shields. Bam! Wang Yu was sent flying far away. Boom! A golden chi barrier appeared and protected Wang Yu. The warrior's charge had a stun effect. Wang Yu found his balance in the air, but he couldn't move his body. He couldn't quick recover and could only fall to the ground. The players knew how powerful Wang Yu was. Seeing Wang Yu fall, they wouldn't let him go so easily. At the same time, spells, arrows, blades, swords, and spears all hit Wang Yu. Fortunately, the chi barrier had 2 seconds of invincibility. Otherwise, Wang Yu would have been minced into meat paste. As the chi barrier disappeared, Wang Yu's dusk leap also came off cooldown. His figure flashed out of the circle. Chase him. Everyone knew that no matter how powerful Wang Yu was, he had a limit. Seeing that Wang Yu was about to run, they all chased after him. However, before they could run far, they suddenly felt their feet heat up and a sea of fire rose. Within the sea of fire, everyone except the tanks were instantly killed. Even the tanks were in red health. The tanks activated their movement skills and rushed out of the sea of fire. Just as they relaxed, a blue spear flew towards them. Sizzle. With the sound of an electric shock, the remaining tanks were also stabbed to death. With just 2 spells, Mingdu blasted a hole in the players' formation. Everyone was shocked. Thunder Mages were the class with the highest attack and burst in rebirth. A Thunder Mage with full intelligence could instantly kill most classes at the current stage. However, there weren't many Thunder Mages in rebirth. This was because Thunder Mages only had powerful attack, but their skills also had obvious flaws. First of all, Thunder Mage's skills were non-directional and required prediction and aiming. Secondly, Thunder Mages didn't have soft control effects such as speed reduction and burn, nor did they have continuous damage. Mages didn't have crowd control, so it was easy for others to get close to them. Mages who got close were basically useless. If they couldn't hit the enemy, no matter how high their damage was, it was useless. Therefore, the position of Thunder Mages in Rebirth was very awkward. Today, the experts had witnessed a qualified lightning magician. Radiant City's high magic damage and excellent judgment had created the existence of a cannon fort. What speed reduction or burn, he didn't need any of that. He just needed to attack fiercely and accurately. As long as he attacked first, no one would be able to get close to him alive. An opening was blasted open in Radiant City. He flung his lightning around and ran towards the outside. Before mages learned Blink at level 25, they didn't have movement skills. Mingdu didn't have Wang Yu's skills either. Even though he had blasted an opening, he didn't get far before he was once again blocked by the crowd. Hellfire Rise. Seeing that everyone had surrounded him, Mingdu held his staff and shouted again. Everyone knew that this skill of Mingdu's was powerful and hurriedly ran in all directions. However, the people who escaped from Mingdu's attack range suddenly realized that there was no magic rising. Hee. Skill cooldown. Bright Doe chuckled and gave everyone the middle finger. F*CK. Where's the assassin? Stab this B*TCH to death. After being played by Mingdu again and again, everyone's anger exploded. Even if they couldn't kill that Iron Ox today, killing this B*TCH would not be a waste. Chapter 149. Genius 1 Second Remember, providing you with exciting novels to read. The Thief class was the most OP class at the current stage. Apart from the Shield Bearers and Guardian Knights, they basically had no natural enemies. Assassins were also the main class in the Thief class that focused on explosive damage. Not to mention a mere mage, even a warrior would not fare well if they were stabbed in the back a few times by an assassin. Magic Shield was a rare skill that Mingdu did not know. Ordinary mages only had one skill to prevent assassins from getting close to them, and that was Resistance Ring of Fire. Just from the name, one could tell that this skill was only for self-defense. It was fine if the damage was low, so assassins generally ignored this skill. Mingdu activated resistance at the first moment. As Mingdu rarely used this skill, his proficiency was very low. A few fireballs circled around his body, like a candle in the wind, struggling at death's door. In order to prevent being stabbed by an assassin, Mingdu twisted his body coquettishly while counting down. 321. Hellfire. Rise. Hearing this, Everyone showed disdainful expressions. He wanted to use the same move twice. Have you heard of the story of the boy who cried wolf? At this moment, a raging flame rose from under Mingdu's feet. With Mingdu as the center, a 500-yard radius was set ablaze. The thief who was in stealth was burned into a white light. F***CK? B***TCH. Seeing this, everyone was shocked and angry. A sky full of magic and arrows smashed towards Mingdu. At this time, Mingdu had already used up all his skills. Facing this attack that had no blind spots, he simply spread his arms, planning to die gloriously. Suddenly, a white gas rolled over and grabbed Mingdu, dragging Mingdu out of the circle. F***CK. There's still one more. Everyone was so focused on dealing with Mingdu that they forgot about the main character that had escaped. Seeing that Wang Yu still dared to come back to die, they naturally would not show any mercy. The target changed, and all the firepower was concentrated on Wang Yu, a lineup of more than 200 people, over 100 mages and archers, and there was also the harassment of the control class. If he could avoid this game might as well shut down. Literature Tower. Fortunately, Eternal Silent Dawn disbanded the party the moment the system issued the quest. When the ranged classes attacked, the melee classes did not dare to advance. Wang Yu dodged left and right as he retreated. There were too many attacks, and Wang Yu could only avoid some of the stronger skills. His arms and legs were hit one after another, causing his already small amount of HP to plummet. When the two of them escaped the range of the attacks, Wang Yu only had 6 HP left. If he sneezed, he would probably die. F***CK. Why did you come back, you idiot? Mingdu swung his staff at Wang Yu's back and shouted, "Nothing will happen to me even if I die. If you die, those trash will have it easy. You might as well have it easy on me." Fuck. If we weren't in guild mode, I would have let you have it easy, Wang Yu said as he displayed his attributes. F***CK. Take some pills. No. Wang Yu spread his hands and said, "I didn't buy any medicine. You're ruthless." Mingdu took out a bottle of medicine and threw it to Wang Yu and said, "Our Chuanjin's secret medicine, instant recovery. Remember to reimburse me when you get back." TSK. Wang Yu drank the medicine, and his HP instantly recovered to 30%. He felt a lot more at ease, but when he looked at the enemies surrounding him from all directions, that little bit of relief did not have the slightest effect. "How we fix it?" Mingdu asked anxiously. "I don't know." Wang Yu looked at the surrounding terrain. There were tents everywhere. Walking on the roof was completely out of the question. At this time, all 3 directions were crusaders and players. The only way to escape was to the east. Just as the two of them were about to run east, another group of players suddenly appeared from the east and blocked the gap. "It's over." F***CK. Mingdu was in despair and scolded in the guild channel. "You dogs, hurry up and come." 3 o'clock in the east. Wuji replied calmly. 3 o'clock in the east? Mingdu looked to the east and saw that the group of people there were all blue and green, and their bodies were all covered in the glow of exquisite equipment. He replied, "There's people there. They're all experts." Wuji said, "Are there any weak players here? Think of a way yourself. Think your sister." Mingdu was furious. "Think of a way, why would I ask you? How many seconds is left until the Guardian switch cooldown?" Wang Yu suddenly asked Mingdu after thinking for a moment. 5 seconds. "Okay, let's charge." "Charge? Are you thinking of?" Mingdu was shocked. "That's right. F***CK. It's better to fight than to wait for death." Mingdu nodded and rushed east with Wang Yu. There were about 20 people on the east side, and their emblems were quite familiar. From the emblems, they seemed to be from the same guild. Wang Yu's movement speed was faster than Mingdu's, and he charged toward the players on the east side. Seeing Wang Yu's ferocity, everyone turned their attention to Mingdu. At this time, Mingdu waved his staff and switched positions with the person at the front. If the experienced and knowledgeable famed sword Daoshua was here, he would definitely recognize that this guild was pure land of bliss. The person who had been converted by Bright City was called One Flower, One World, and he was the boss of Pure Land of Bliss. In the system settings, there was no damage between teammates in the same party, but if the target was dragged by the enemy, damage would be dealt. This was a bug that Wang Yu discovered early on. At that time, there was a thief who was used as a shield by Wang Yu and was killed by his own guild at this time. One flower, one world was also judged to be dragged by Mingdu. And then, there was no boss. Seeing that their boss actually died under the attack of one of their own, everyone was shocked and brandished their weapons to attack Mingdu. At the same time, Wang Yu flashed behind the people from Pure Land of Bliss and extended his hand. A white gas wrapped around Mingdu and pulled him out of the encirclement. The target couldn't move when pulled by Cloud Grasp, and the person being pulled wasn't invincible. In that instant, the two of them were beaten down again. While Wang Yu and Mingdu were still in the air, Wang Yu extended his hands and grabbed onto Mingdu with a knee strike. He borrowed the force and threw Mingdu behind him. Then, he hit the ground with a chi wave and jumped back. Seeing that the two were about to escape, the players from Pure Land of Bliss were about to chase after them. However, a distorted barrier suddenly appeared out of nowhere and trapped everyone. Reinforcements are here. The two of them were overjoyed. When they turned around, they saw a few sloppy figures. Spring Source Distortion locked the players from Pure Land of Bliss in place. The imps lined up in a row and stood in front of Wang Yu and Mingdu. Wuji waved his staff, and two white rays of recovery spell landed on Wang Yu and Mingdu's heads, pulling their dangerously low health points back to a safe level. Mother Asterisk Kerr. Mingdu was quite frightened by the players from Pure Land of Bliss. Now that they were being controlled, he held the lightning spear in his left hand and hellfire in his right. The combination of thunder and fire instantly burned several people to death. A few of the more tenacious players were still struggling. Bao San and the others had already rushed out and sent the remaining few players back to the resurrection point with their fists, legs, and swords. Go, leave this to us. Wuji raised his head and said to Wang Yu, Yes, be careful. Wang Yu didn't hesitate and ran back into the city. The players were blocked, but there were still the Crusaders. These guys' only target was Wang Yu. The two of you ran like wild dogs just now. It was fun to watch, Wuji said with a smile as he watched Wang Yu leave. Mingdu said angrily, Then why didn't you help earlier? I almost died because of you. Haha, we've said it before. We'll like to see you two idiots being hunted down. Chapter 150. As they spoke, the players who were chasing them had already caught up to the people from Chuanjin. Chun Xiang lined up Little Ghost in a row and blocked the group's path with a smile. Everyone, where are you going? This path is blocked. Chuanjin? Everyone was slightly stunned, and they looked at the people from Chuanjin. These people did not know Wuji and the others, but they knew Mingdu. At that moment, when they saw that the badges on Wuji and the others' chests were the same as Mingdu's, they immediately guessed the identity of Wuji and the others. It was better not to meet them than to know them. Everyone originally thought that the people from Chuanjin who were so awesome on the forum would be some sort of expert. Who would have thought that they would be such a group of people who looked so frivolous? When World's hero saw Mingdu and Wuji and the others chatting happily, he walked forward and said, I am World's hero from unparalleled under the heavens. Everyone, please make way. World's hero's words were very polite, but his tone was very pretentious. What he meant was, I'm a number one expert in unparalleled under the heavens. You should know who I am, if you know what's good for you. Good dogs, don't block the way. If these words were said to other people, it might have been useful, but in the eyes of the people from Chuanjin, experts were worse than **T. After all, this group of people had been in contact with Wang Yu for a long time, and in their eyes, everyone was like an ant. What the hell is World's hero? I don't know. I've never heard of it. It sounds like he sells butts. The people from Chuanjin discussed loudly. Not only were these people ruthless, their mouths were also very poisonous. World's hero was an expert who thought very highly of himself. He was very displeased when he was looked down upon by the people from Chuanjin. He pointed at the people from Chuanjin and scolded, Don't be so shameless. Hurry up and move, or else we'll kill our way over. Bang. Before Hero of the Realm could finish his words, Ian Lao air slammed into Hero of the Realm from the side, sending Hero of the Realm flying backwards. To place one's pride, who had rushed over, pressed down on Hero of the Realm's chest and tripped him. Hero of the Realm cried out in pain as he fell to the ground. Bao San and Ming Jian Daoxue followed closely behind. The four of them pressed the heroes of the world to the ground and gave them a good beating, turning them into white light. After that, Ian Lao air spat in the direction where the heroes of the world had disappeared. Bah, pretentious prick, I've long found you an eyesore. The other players were stunned. Was this the power of a Chuanjian expert? Why did it feel like they were a bunch of scoundrels? F***CK. There were quite a few friends of World's Hero in the group. When they saw that World's Hero had been killed, they roared and wanted to take revenge. However, they had only taken a few steps when a distorted barrier appeared beneath their feet. Immediately after, a ball of fire surrounded them. Everyone was stunned once again. AoE crowd control and AoE crowd damage. If they really fought, even if they could break through, a large number of people would probably die. The people of Chuanjian were naturally aware of this outcome. Wuji walked out with a smile and said, "Everyone, please consider this carefully. Although the few of us definitely can't stop everyone, it's still very easy for us to spare a few dozen people's lives. We don't have any grudges against each other, so why must both sides suffer losses? Furthermore, there's only one quest objective. You guys aren't familiar with each other, so are you willing to work for nothing? Also, this is a game. Dying once doesn't mean anything. If Iron Ox comes looking for you for revenge, do you think you have a chance of winning?" Wuji was indeed the brains of Chuanjian. He was extremely good at scheming. The three questions that he threw out at this moment directly pierced through everyone's hearts. Both sides suffer losses and one goal. Everyone could still hope that they would be lucky, but when they thought of facing Wang Yu's pursuit, everyone felt weak. That was an existence that could solo a boss. Normally, everyone dared to say that they were experts, but in their hearts, they and Wang Yu were not in the same dimension. Moreover, they weren't afraid of being stolen by a thief, but they were afraid of being targeted by a thief. If they were targeted by such a person, just thinking about it made them break out in a cold sweat. All right, that's it. I'm not going to chase after him. I'll just honestly do my own quest. A player was the first to quit the pursuit team. Seeing that someone was the first to give up, the others also shook their heads and left with a sigh. There were a few who didn't give up, but they didn't amount to much. Under the sneering gaze of the people of Chuanjian, they finally chose to take a detour. The invisibility scarf couldn't fool the players, but it could fool the system. The Crusaders had low AI, so Wang Yu took a few turns and shook them off. Then, he escaped from the camp, opened the map, and went straight to the barren city. "Are you safe, Iron Ox?" The people of Chuanjian blocked the entrance of the camp for a while. Seeing that no one else passed by, they sent a message to ask. "Yup, we're on the airship. Don't go back to the barren city. There are a lot of people looking for you." Wang Yu replied, "Looking for us? Uncle Nyo, did you hear that right? Are you sure they're not looking for you?" To place one's pride asked back, Wuji said, "This time we've offended almost all the experts in rebirth. It would be strange if they didn't look for us." Mingdu cried out, "Aya, I'm so scared. Iron Ox must compensate us." "That's right. How about 100 gold coins per person?" Mingjian Daoxue said with a smile. Chun Xiang looked at the two of them in disdain. "One look, and I can tell that you haven't seen the world. More than 100 is too cheap. If it's less than 1,000, Iron Ox won't even be able to greet us." Wang Yu, the people of Chuanjian were all smart people. They had a lot of experience in chasing and being chased. To them, this kind of thing didn't bother them at all. After a discussion, they simply left the camp and went to the sinful city. Wang Yu's destination was the last stop of the mission, the Dark City. The Dark City belonged to the Dark faction. In the official background story, the Dark Army was the villain. They originally lived in the barren hell. In order to plunder resources, with the help of the Dark Church, they escaped from hell and started the Dark Descent War, invading human cities. The Dark Church had 7 elders. They had been baptized by the Demon King and were not afraid of thousands of men. Under their leadership, the Dark Army once occupied 90% of the continent's territory. Later, 5 heroes appeared among the humans. They formed a resistance army and allied with 2 divine officials from the Holy Court. They finally defeated the Dark Army and chased them to the current barren land. Now, the Dark Faction. The lifespan given by the demons was eternal. The 7 heroes either retired or disappeared. Coupled with the arrogance of the Holy Court and the infighting between humans, they quickly split into 2. Thus, the Dark Army took the opportunity to launch a second invasion, which was the current one. The Dark City was the #1 main city of the Dark Faction. At the same time, it was also the lair of the Dark Church in the game. Before the division of factions at level 25, players from both sides could interact with each other. After the division of factions, at level 25, if the people from the Light faction dared to come here, they would definitely be hunted down. Because killing players from the opposing faction not only didn't increase their crimes, but also increased their glory. Chapter 151. Genius 1 Second Remember, providing you with wonderful novels to read. As soon as Wang Yu arrived in Darkness City, he was surrounded by guards. Wang Yu had been surrounded by guards these past 2 days and was scared by these brainless soldiers. He said in a shocked voice, "Didn't Father already have 100 glory points?" At the same time, Wang Yu was secretly regretting it. If he knew this earlier, he wouldn't have taken off his mask. Wang Yu was about to escape when he heard the leading guard say, "Respected God Slayer, the Lord Apostle wants to see you." The Apostle wants to see me? Wang Yu was a bit stunned. When the airship entered the Dark Faction's territory, Wang Yu had been forcefully explained by the animation. The strongest people in the Dark Faction were the 7 elders that had been baptized by the demon, and the Apostle was the title of the 7 elders of the Dark Church. The Apostle actually wanted to personally see him. This was no different from being met by the 7 heroes. "Come with me." The guard ignored Wang Yu's question and said to Wang Yu. Looking at this group of powerful guards, Wang Yu helplessly followed. Darkness City was mainly black and red, giving people a very oppressive feeling. Darkness City was the same as Holy Light City. It was a very large main city. It was as large as a real city, and if one could only walk in such a large city, the Soaring Dragon Company would be splashed with paint. Therefore, this kind of large city would have many teleportation formations. After a while, Wang Yu followed the guards to a teleportation formation and was directly teleported to a large and grand building. Under the system's introduction, Wang Yu knew that this was the legendary Dark Church, which was also the government of Darkness City. Literature building the Dark Faction always respected the strong. It seemed like the Apostle was not only the faith of the Dark Faction, he was also the city lord of Darkness City. "Respected God Slayer, you're here." As soon as Wang Yu entered the door, a skinny old man wearing a long black robe came forward to greet him. Wang Yu threw an appraisal technique over. First Apostle, Edwin. Apart from his name, everything else was a question mark. It seemed like this old man was a legendary figure like Arceus. But Edwin's attitude towards her made Wang Yu feel very comfortable. He was a legendary boss after all, and he actually spoke to her so intimately. He was much better than that high and mighty inquisitor of the Holy Church who acted like he was nothing. "Greetings, Lord Edwin." Wang Yu replied symbolically. Respect was mutual. Respecting others was respecting oneself. Edwin said with a smile, "You don't have to be so courteous, God Slayer. You've killed the detestable Alex and helped the Dark Army get rid of a huge threat. I wonder how I can help you." Wang Yu was a bit speechless. This was clearly arranged by the system, not his own intention. But since Edwin said so, Wang Yu didn't hold back and immediately said, "I came to Darkness City this time to find the Dark Bones." "The Dark Bones?" Hearing this, Apostle Edwin carefully sized up Wang Yu and said, "So you're a martial arts scholar. No wonder you have the power to make even the gods fear you." Is there a connection between the two?" Wang Yu asked. "A martial arts scholar." Edwin's eyes suddenly became empty, then revealed a trace of fear. I didn't think that after so many years his successor would appear again. NPCs in games all had the same personality. They all liked to talk to themselves. Martial arts scholar, are you looking for the dark bones? Yes. Wang Yu nodded, thinking that the old man had finally gotten to the point. Let's go to the burial grounds. Edwin answered Wang Yu's question, then continued to talk to himself. Many years ago, this was a city ruled by a demon god. A martial arts scholar came here and defeated the demon god. When the martial arts scholar was about to kill the demon god brought the martial arts scholar to hell. Then the martial arts scholar let him go. Why is that? Wang Yu asked curiously. Because the martial arts scholar saw the barrenness of hell and knew that everything the demon god did was for his people. The demon race is actually the same as the humans, elves, and other races. We all belong to this world and shouldn't be treated as exiles, eating dirt in another world. Wang Yu nodded, then said, What you said makes sense, but you're still evil. How can there be absolute good and evil in this world? But you invade the homeland of others. That's wrong, no matter what your intentions are. Is that so? That's what the martial arts scholar said in the past. Edwin said calmly. So after that war, he didn't kill us all, but gave us a foothold on this continent, hoping that this world can be at peace. We're very grateful to him. So chaotic? Wang Yu's mind was in a mess. As one of the 7 heroes, wasn't the martial arts scholar on the side of justice? Why was he still helping the dark faction? It's not chaotic. That martial arts scholar often said that heroes are born in troubled times. But who is the true hero, and who is the true justice? You mean to say that abandoning the concept of race and allowing all living beings to live in peace is the true hero? The one who upholds the true justice? Wang Yu asked. That's right. You have the root of wisdom and can definitely obtain his inheritance. That demon god became the martial arts scholar's best friend in the end, and the bones of the demon god are buried in the burial ground. The demon god's soul is eternal, and although he doesn't have a body, his magic is still powerful. You have to be careful, martial arts scholar. Thank you, Lord Apostle. Wang Yu cupped his fist at Edwin. Edwin smiled. No need to thank me. You have to thank the justice in your heart. If you didn't answer like that just now, I would have destroyed you for the dark faction. Destroyed? What do you mean? Edwin said, in your words, beaten back to level 0. I don't want to have a powerful enemy in the dark faction. Hiss. Wang Yu sucked in a breath of cold air. F***, this system is full of traps. So this bastard apostle called me here to test me. No wonder people say that demons are the best at disguises. Your performance is not bad. I wish you good luck. The apostle waved his hand, and a black light sent Wang Yu out the door. Then, Wang Yu received a system notification. System notification. The burial ground instance dungeon has opened 60 minutes until closing. At the same time, an oval-shaped black vortex appeared in front of Wang Yu's eyes. Wang Yu placed his hand on the vortex, and a powerful force sucked Wang Yu in. System notification. You have discovered the burial ground. Obtained 1,000 experience points. System notification. You have accepted the quest, Will of the Demon God. Quest level A. Completion requirement. Obtain Dark Skeleton and leave within 160 minutes. Completion rate, 60%. Defeat the Demon God's Soul Camel. Obtain Dark Skeleton and leave within 260 minutes. Completion rate, 100%. Dark Faction honor points 60 to 100 upon success. Chapter 152. Genius 1 Second Remember, providing you with exciting novels to read. The Boneyard, as the name suggested, was a very gloomy place. From the map, it looked more like a tomb. The tomb was very dark, and on the surrounding walls, there were 2 green torches inserted every few steps. The swaying flames added a bit of gloominess to the atmosphere. Whoosh, whoosh. Wang Yu had only walked a few steps when he suddenly heard the sound of wind. He quickly jumped back, only to see 2 black bone arrows wrapped in green light, inserted into the place where he was just standing. Wang Yu determined the location by listening to the wind, pulled down a torch from the wall, and threw it in the direction where the arrows came from. He found that on the wall above the tomb, there were two black skeletons with bows and arrows aimed at him. Demonized Skeleton Archer, LV-25, Elite, HP, 10,000 MP, 2,000 skills, night vision, accurate shooting, soul corroding bone. These skeletons were standing at a very high position, at least a dozen meters. Their shooting from above was actually far beyond the attack range of a normal archer. A short-range profession, like a grandmaster of combat, could only watch helplessly. Fortunately, there weren't many archers, and their attack frequency wasn't fast either. Just as Wang Yu was about to rush over with a burst fist, he suddenly heard a series of cracking sounds. Right in front of him, another 4 skeletons came out. These 4 skeletons were quite strange. 2 of them were huge, holding a sword in one hand and a shield in the other, while the other 2 held spears in their hands and rode on skeletal horses. Demonized Skeleton Warrior, LV-30, Elite, HP, 10,000 MP, 1,000 skills, Shield Bash, Dart Protection, Crippling Strike. Demonized Skeleton Knight, LV-35, Elite, HP, 15,000 MP, 1,500 skills, Trample, Charge. Oh, these 4 fellows were very huge. Not to mention 4 of them standing side by side. Even 2 of them standing side by side would be enough to block the same path. Intruder who disturbs the eternal sleep of the demon god. We will send him back to hell. The 2 skeleton knights at the front pointed their spears at Wang Yu and charged toward her. Experts in the game all had experience fighting these narrow-terrain, blocking monsters. If it was someone else, with a monster charging in front and an archer lying in ambush above, they would definitely lure these monsters to the wide terrain outside of the archer's range and kill them, or shake them off. Of course, the aggro of the dungeon monsters was spread throughout the entire dungeon. Once aggro was drawn, it would chase them to the ends of the earth. To deal with these guys, the only way was to eliminate them. Literature Tower. Wang Yu hadn't fought many dungeons before, so he didn't know much about the aggro settings of dungeon monsters. Remembering that he still had a countdown timer, Wang Yu didn't want to waste time on these guys, so he didn't retreat but went forward to meet them head-on. The priority of the Skeleton Knight's charge was very high, so Wang Yu didn't dare to take it head-on. Just as the 2 spears were about to stab into his body, Wang Yu leaped high into the air and used a collapsing fist to cross the air. Who would have thought that this knight was quite cunning? Seeing Wang Yu fly above its head, the spear in its hand suddenly stabbed upwards. Wang Yu didn't panic. He turned his body and sent out a chi wave, using the recoil to dodge the 2 spears. At this moment, 2 bone arrows descended from the sky. Wang Yu used Thunder Stamp and forcefully landed on the ground. The 2 skeleton warriors also raised their shields to block. Duong. Zila. The priority of Wang Yu's Thunder Stamp was no weaker than Shield Bash. When the 2 skills collided, the effects of the skills canceled out, and an extremely ear-piercing sound was heard. At this time, the 2 knights had already turned their horses around and stabbed again. Wang Yu bent his knees and leaped up again. He stepped on the walls on both sides and dodged the 2 waves of shots from the archers. Thud, thud, thud. He jumped above the tomb and then pushed the 2 silly archers down with both palms. Bang! Crash! The 2 archers smashed into the bodies of the 4 tanks, and a minus 2,000 damage appeared above the heads of the 6 monsters. From the bottom up, the archers' shooting range became normal. Wang Yu ignored them and ran into the tomb with his head down. The tomb wasn't very big, and Wang Yu was walking on top, so the distance was shortened a lot. Along the way, they ran into 2 more waves of the same monsters. Wang Yu did not hesitate at all and pushed the archer down the same way. Literature Tower. When Wang Yu ran to the deepest part of the tomb, there was actually a bunch of monsters behind him. The main tomb was very spacious, and in the middle was a circular altar. Around the altar was a circle of strange runes that flashed with purple light. Damn! Wang Yu jumped down from the top of the tomb and was shocked when he saw the neat formation below. The monsters wouldn't talk nonsense with Wang Yu. When they saw that Wang Yu had finally jumped down, the skeleton knights pointed their spears and charged. Fortunately, The main tomb was relatively spacious, and Wang Yu was agile. He jumped a few times and dodged the skeleton knight's charge and trample. Before Wang Yu could stabilize himself, the skeleton archer's bow and arrow had already shot over. Wang Yu subconsciously waved his hands and blocked the 6 bow and arrows. Then, Wang Yu was dumbfounded. Ean's spirit corroding bone. The bow and arrows are attached with Ean's spirits from hell. When it comes into contact with a living person, it will corrode their muscles and bones. Movement speed will be reduced by 10% for 10 seconds. Stackable. Wang Yu blocked a total of 6 bow and arrows. Each bow and arrow had a layer of Ean's spirit corroding bone. Now that the layers were stacked, Wang Yu's movement speed was reduced by 60%. The skeleton warriors followed closely behind. They aimed at Wang Yu and raised their swords to slash. Wang Yu continued to roll backwards, dodging the attacks of the skeleton warriors. However, the skeleton knights continued to charge over. Damn. These monsters actually knew how to cooperate. Wang Yu was really speechless. The 10 seconds of Ean's spirit corroding bone had passed. Wang Yu switched the boxing glove in his hand to warrior's persistence. He rolled on the ground and landed under one of the skeleton knight's horses. He suddenly stabbed the long staff in his hand upward and used rising straight upward. The staff pierced through the skeleton warhorse's bones and stuck it. The top of the staff fiercely hit the skeleton knight's tailbone. Physics tells us that the inertia of the human body is very large when suddenly braking while moving at high speed. The skeleton knight was still raising its spear and stabbing downward, but it was sent flying by Wang Yu's staff. Wang Yu pushed the staff up and used Rising Dragon. He grabbed the horse's bones and jumped onto the horse's back. He then caught the long staff and blocked the incoming spear. Non-free mode monsters would have an opening after attacking. Wang Yu spun his staff and swept it, and the 2 skeleton knights beside him fell from their horses. The skeleton knights that lost their horses could not move. Their empty faces were expressionless, but their mechanical movements of swinging their spears were particularly strange. Among the 3 types of monsters, the skeleton knights were the most difficult to deal with. After finding a way to deal with them, Wang Yu jumped left and right on the horse's back. He raised his staff and swung it down. The other 3 skeleton knights also fell to the ground. The skeleton archers shot their bone arrows again. Wang Yu swung his staff and drew a large circle in the air, knocking down the arrows. With a flash of light, he appeared behind the skeleton archers. The so-called staff technique was to attack from a point and control from an area. Wang Yu's staff flew everywhere, covering all 6 skeleton archers. Under Wang Yu's staff attacks, the skeleton archers could not even turn around, let alone attack. Staffs were considered heavy weapons, so when a normal attack's completion rate exceeded 100%, it would deal armor-piercing damage. The skeleton archers did not have armor, so the armor-piercing damage turned into bone shards. Bone shards had a 30% attack bonus against these bone staffs. The staff was originally a single-target attack weapon, but in the hands of Wang Yu, who had reached the pinnacle of staff techniques, it actually became an AoE attack. Of course, the skeleton warriors would not watch as their companions were abused. They turned around and raised their shields to attack. Wang Yu somersaulted forward, dodging their shield attacks. Then he swung his staff, his figure constantly changing, enveloping the 6 skeleton warriors in the shadow of his staff. If Yang Na was here and saw Wang Yu's current movement technique, her eyeballs would definitely pop out of their sockets. Because the footwork Wang Yu was using was the Yang family's secret technique, 7 astral steps. In less than 20 seconds, the skeleton archers with 10,000 HP were smashed into pieces by Wang Yu. Because they were quest monsters, they did not drop any items. They only turned into wisps of black smoke and floated to the circular altar in the middle of the tomb. 1/3 of the purple runes turned golden. The 6 skeleton warriors were more difficult to deal with. These monsters were professional melee classes. Compared to the skeleton archers, who were useless in close combat, they were much fiercer. Although Wang Yu's staff Shadow Shroud could interrupt the skeleton warrior's skills, because of the skeleton warrior's high frequency of skills, Wang Yu's staff did not have time to aim, and most of his attacks hit the shields. Looking at the time, there were still more than 40 minutes left. Wang Yu was a little anxious. It took so long to kill the small monsters, who knew how hard it would be to beat the boss. He could not waste any more time. Thinking of this, Wang Yu used his staff to hit the shield of one of the skeleton warriors and used the force to jump back 3 meters. The skeleton warrior raised the shield in its left hand and chased after him with large strides. There's an opening. Seeing this, Wang Yu was delighted. The skeleton warriors held the shield in their left hand. Although the shield was wide, the skeleton warriors were also very tall, so when they raised the shield, their right leg would be unnaturally exposed. Wang Yu smiled and struck out with his staff. The staff hit the knee of the skeleton warrior, causing it to pause slightly. At this time, the other skeleton warriors also chased over. Wang Yu turned around and swept the staff over the feet of the other skeleton warriors. The skeleton warriors' bodies slightly tilted, and they almost fell. "It's here!" Wang Yu laughed, and once again rushed into the encirclement of the skeleton warriors. Staff shadows appeared one after another, pointing, poking, sweeping. Every move attacked the lower 3 parts of the skeleton warriors. The long staff hit the bones, making a pleasant pa-pa sound. The frequency was fast and rhythmic. The skeleton warriors were just like the heavenly king of the last century, twitching and twitching as they performed the zombie dance with great gusto. Kacha, under Wang Yu's targeted bone-shattering attacks. Even hardest bones could not withstand a long period of beating. The right legs of the 6 skeleton warriors were all broken. Without its right leg, the skeletal warriors were just like the skeletal knights, falling to the ground. Wang Yu walked behind them and knocked on the back of their heads. The skeletal warriors helplessly turned into black smoke and flew towards the altar. 2/3 of the altar was lit up. Wang Yu looked at the mission countdown. There were still 35 minutes left. Chapter 153. Genius 1 Second Remember, providing you with exciting novels to read. When Wang Yu first entered the main burial chamber, he was notified that he had discovered this summoning altar, so he had been paying attention to the changes of the altar when he was killing the monsters. Literature building. When the skeletal archer and skeletal warrior were killed, Wang Yu noticed the abnormality of the altar, so he turned around and killed the skeletal knights on the ground as well. After the skeletal knight turned into a black mist and flew into the altar, the runes around the altar suddenly lit up. Then, after a series of hellish screams, the runes on the altar disappeared, and a green light flew out of the altar. Wang Yu used Identify on the light. Vengeful Spirit, LV, 5, HP, 1000 MP, 1000 skill. Mental attack. Just as Wang Yu was about to slap it to death, the altar exploded with a boom, and a skeleton was revealed under the shattered altar. While Wang Yu was stunned, the green Vengeful Spirit flew to the top of the tomb. Dark Skeleton. Wang Yu was overjoyed when he saw the skeleton, and quickly went up to pull it out of the altar. At this moment, Wang Yu felt his body tighten. Then his hands were out of control, and he threw the dark skeleton on the ground. Wang Yu bent down to pick it up again, and he lost control of his body again. Following that, Wang Yu felt a strong, killing intent coming from above. Wang Yu immediately turned his head to look, and even a bold person like Wang Yu was so scared that he took 2 steps back. The vengeful spirit that flew to the top of the tomb just now was expanding crazily. It was originally only the size of football, but now it was 3 times bigger than the skeletal warrior. Wang Yu grabbed the rod and threw it. The vengeful spirit was still evolving, and it did not dodge, letting Wang Yu's rod pass through its body without suffering any damage. The vengeful spirit was too far away from the ground, and Wang Yu could not reach it at all. He could only let it transform. About a few seconds later, the vengeful spirit finally completed its evolution. From a huge creature, it condensed into a green spirit body that was taller than a person. An eternal soul. Camille, 35, Gold Boss, Elite, HP, 200,000 MP, 500,000 skills. Soul Shock, Hell Scream, Netherworld Ghostfire. Seeing a level 5 ghost evolve into such a powerful boss, Wang Yu couldn't help but lament at how cunning this boss was. After removing the seal, it didn't say anything else and first used the quest item to attract his attention, then secretly ran off to evolve, as expected of a demon's soul. Ha ha! After Camel finished forming his body, he laughed loudly and asked Wang Yu, "Is it you who disturbed the demonic god's eternal sleep?" Wang Yu looked at the skeleton on the ground, raised his head, and said, "I only want the dark skeleton. You can continue sleeping, hee." Camel sneered. With a stretch of his hand, the dark skeleton was put away. Then, Camel shouted fiercely, "Ridiculous mortal! You must pay for your greed. Soul shock." After saying that, the two oily green flames in Camel's hollow eyes lit up. Within 800 yards of Camel, rays of blue light descended from the sky. Wang Yu used the 7 astral steps to dodge the blue light and arrive below Camille. She stabbed the long rod into the ground and held it with both hands. Her legs were covered in lightning as she kicked Camille. BZ 1145 Camel's body dimmed slightly. At this time, Wang Yu also had a rough idea of what was going on. Camel's spirit body was actually immune to physical attacks. "Damn it! How dare you hurt the great Lord Camel?" Camille roared. A mournful voice came from all directions, like the wailing of ghosts and the howling of wolves. At the same time, a fear icon appeared above Wang Yu's head. Wang Yu's body involuntarily ran in the opposite direction. The blue light was still descending. Wang Yu ran into the blue light of soul shock and lost a lot of his health. Fortunately, the fear effect only lasted for 3 seconds. Once the fear was over, Wang Yu regained control of his body. He hurriedly dodged the soul shock and threw himself into the corner of a wall. Literature building. However, Camel did not chase after him. Instead, he slowly floated in the air. How strange, Wang Yu thought. In the past, when bosses were provoked, they were afraid that he would run away. Why was this guy so nonchalant? Was he not interested in him? But whether or not Camel was interested in him was not important. What was important was that he was holding the necessities of the quest. Thinking of this, Wang Yu once again rushed into the range of soul shock. He activated Cloud Grasp and dragged Camel down from the air. Then, he threw a falling cloud palm at Camel's head. 1752-2450 Wang Yu turned around and jumped back. Another wave of chi hit Camel. 2241 after throwing 3 skills. Wang Yu used blink and reappeared in the corner of a wall. Despicable mortal. Camel roared again. A ring of purple flames appeared in a 500-yard radius around him. This is a little shameless. Wang Yu was helpless against Camille's skill. Wang Yu's attack range was at most 300 yards. However, Camel's protective flames had a range of 500 yards. Not to mention the endless soul shock and hell shriek. If it was just soul shock, Wang Yu could still dodge it with his movement skills. However, there was no gap in the netherworld ghost fire. There was no way to dodge. Although Camel's cries were extremely tragic, he still stood there. He had no intention of chasing after Wang Yu. Wang Yu looked at the quest time. There were still 25 minutes left. He could not help but exclaim, "Is this the system's way of stalling for time?" If that was the case, there was nothing Wang Yu could do. Wang Yu's skills were all in his fists and legs. However, this boss was immune to physical attacks. Moreover, magic attacks could not get close to him. Time was ticking away. Was he going to drag this on until he died? While Wang Yu was struggling, Camel waved his hands. The range of soul shock changed. Once again, it smashed toward Wang Yu. Something's wrong. Wang Yu rolled over to avoid the range of soul shock. Suddenly, he felt something strange. After the previous battle, Wang Yu had basically determined the range of soul shock. It definitely could not hit him. However, this time, the range of soul shock did not increase. Instead, it hit him. In other words, it was not that Camel did not move, but that he was moving very slowly. Thinking of this, Wang Yu carefully looked at Camel. Sure enough, this guy was slowly approaching him. Wang Yu was immediately amused and said with a smile, "Haha, so it turns out that you have short legs. I'm not afraid of you moving. but I'm afraid that you won't move." Saying that, Wang Yu took out a small box from his pocket. Magic Trap immobilizes the enemy target for 45 seconds. Within 3 minutes, the target cannot use any skills. This item was obtained by Wang Yu in Wind City. Along the way, Wang Yu had completed many quests. Even when facing Arceus, Wang Yu had not used it. It was not because Wang Yu was reluctant to use it. Instead, it was because of the setting of this game. As a trap, there was a 30-second lead time. In other words, after throwing the trap on the ground, it would only take effect after 30 seconds. What kind of boss was Arceus? He was one of the top bosses. 30 seconds was more than enough to kill Wang Yu many times over. Besides, forbidden skills were completely useless against a boss that relied on brute strength. However, Camel was different. He had no physical attacks, and his movement speed was extremely slow. Falling into a trap was basically no different from dying. Wang Yu took out the magic trap and placed it in his palm. With a leap, he rushed into the range of Soul Shock. While rolling to avoid Soul Shock, Wang Yu placed all 5 traps in Camel's path. Bosses in manual mode were very cunning. If he threw the traps openly, Camel would definitely be able to dodge them. Even if he placed the traps stealthily, Wang Yu would not be at ease. So he used all the traps. After placing the traps, Wang Yu retreated to the corner of the wall and silently counted down. Click! With a soft sound, a white hexagram rose up and surrounded Camille. System notice: you have activated a magic trap. Following that, the blue soul shock from the sky stopped descending. The nether ghost fire around Camel also dissipated. Camel's entire body was trapped in place. "I only have 3 minutes." Wang Yu dashed forward and hit Camel in the face with a telekinesis wave. Although the martial arts scholar was a dual cultivator of magic and martial arts, Wang Yu was more inclined towards a striker path because of his own reasons. Therefore, even after reaching level 20, his Chi Master skills were only 3.5 with Thunder Stomp. Camel was immune to physical attacks, so Wang Yu used magic attacks to grind it down. It was both helpless and boring. These skills also had cooldowns, so he could not chain them at all. After 3 minutes, Wang Yu had only managed to whittle down Camel's HP by half. After 3 minutes, the effects of the magic trap disappeared. Camel once again used all of its skills. Because it had suffered, Camel turned around and moved in the opposite direction. F***CK? This shameless bastard. How can he do this? Wang Yu cursed and chased after Camel. Although Camel's movement speed was slow, Wang Yu could not get close. After circling around Camel, Wang Yu felt a headache coming on as he failed to find an opportunity. There was still a dozen or so minutes left. Was he going to let the quest fail, just like that? There's no other way. I can only gamble. Wang Yu gritted his teeth and charged forward again. Seeing Wang Yu chasing after him, Camel waved his hands and used Soul Shock. Wang Yu's figure flashed and landed directly above Camel. Then, a staff appeared under his feet and Wang Yu stood on top of it. Camel roared and activated Hell Screech. The symbol of fear appeared above Wang Yu's head. The fear caused Wang Yu to lose his balance and fall from the staff. Directly below Wang Yu was the attack range of the Nether Ghost Fire. At this moment, Wang Yu had completely lost control of his body due to fear and fell right into the range of the Nether Ghost Fire. Chapter 154. Genius 1 Second Remember, providing you with wonderful novels to read. Poof! When Wang Yu fell from the staff, he still had around 50% of his HP left. He fell into the attack range of the Nether Ghost Fire, and the Chi Guard was immediately burnt out. 321 Wang Yu started counting down again. After 2 seconds, the Chi Guard disappeared and the fear effect also disappeared. At the same time, Wang Yu leaned back and used an iron bridge. His whole body was parallel to the ground, hiding under the Nether Ghost Fire. Camel's height was about the same as a normal person's, and the Nether Ghost Fire surrounded Camel's waist. Wang Yu just happened to avoid being burnt by the Nether Ghost Fire. My gamble paid off. Seeing his HP stop decreasing, Wang Yu was secretly pleasantly surprised. At the same time, He rejoiced that this was a holographic simulation game. As long as the spell didn't touch him, it wouldn't be judged as an attack. Otherwise, he would have definitely been burnt to death. Immediately after, Wang Yu used both of his hands, the chi wave in his right hand and the cloud seizing hand in his left. The recoil force from the chi wave pushed Wang Yu back, while the cloud seizing hand pulled Camel back. Crack. Another trap was triggered. The soul shock and nether ghost fire suddenly stopped. Camel's hell scream, which had just finished its cooldown, was also stuck in his throat. Falling cloud palm. Thunder stamp. Seeing Camel being imprisoned once again, Wang Yu used his magic skills to attack. When the 3 minutes of magic suppression was about to end, Wang Yu used Cloud, capturing hand again, and pulled Camille onto another trap. Finally, when there were only 6 minutes left, Camel turned into a wisp of black smoke and was once again sealed in the altar. Picking up the dark skeleton from the ground, the Boneyard Instance dungeon collapsed, and Wang Yu was teleported back to the Dark Church. System notification. You have completed the quest, Will of the Demon God. Quest level, A. Completion rate, 100% system notification. You have obtained the Dark Skeleton. System notification, Dark Faction Honor 100. Currently admired by 10,000 people. Wang Yu held the Dark Skeleton and sighed with emotion. He had finally completed this damned quest. 2 days, an entire 2 days. Not only was the mission extremely difficult, but he was also hunted down in all sorts of ways, causing Wang Yu to be both physically and mentally exhausted. Just as Wang Yu was about to turn around and leave, the Apostle Edwin suddenly appeared in front of Wang Yu. He said calmly, "Just as I expected, great martial scholar. You really passed the trial." "Lucky, lucky," Wang Yu said, wiping his sweat. Wang Yu really didn't have the slightest confidence in the last Iron Bridge. He was even prepared to fail. "Isn't luck also a part of strength?" Edwin smiled and said, "Great martial arts scholar, the Dark Church lacks talents like you the most. May I ask if you have the heart to serve the people of the Demon God?" System notice. You have received Edwin's recognition. Do you wish to join the Dark Faction? Wang Yu was stunned for a moment before he asked, "Faction? Isn't that only open at level 25? Edwin smiled and said, "You are different from them. I have special permission for you to join the Dark Church at any time." Let me think. Wang Yu began to think. Back in the Heavenly Dragon City, Wang Yu had heard Brother Chun and the rest talk about factions. Joining a faction would give him a decent faction buff, and he would also have the chance to learn rare faction skills. Faction skills were all unique, which meant that the earlier he joined, the higher the chance he would have. What was even more tempting was that after joining a faction, he would be able to obtain faction contribution points by killing players who were not part of the faction. Faction contribution points could be exchanged for premium equipment. Everyone knew that the most important thing in a game was not one's life, but one's equipment. In games, the value of equipment was more precious than anything else. But Wang Yu was not in a hurry to join, because Chuanjin's base was in Yu Huichang, and Yu Huichang was the territory of the Light Faction. He did not know if the others would be willing to give up their base and follow him. Is everyone still alive? Wang Yu sent a message in the channel. Everyone replied, "Duh. Are you being hunted again?" The Chuanjin people were already used to Wang Yu being chased the entire time he was on this mission, so they thought that Wang Yu had caused trouble in the Dark City again. Wang Yu said awkwardly, "What are you talking about? Do I look like the kind of person that people hate? Don't you look like that?" Wu Ji asked in return. Wang Yu couldn't refute that. Although Wang Yu thought he had a lot of charisma, reality had betrayed him. "I have 200 honor points in the Dark City. Ambassador Edwin has invited me to join the Dark Faction. Do you think I should agree?" Wang Yu quickly changed the topic. "The Apostle invited you?" Chun Xiang heard this and asked in a surprised voice, "Are you kidding? If you wanted benefits, you had to sign up." As a closed beta player, Chun Xiang naturally knew that if he wanted to join the faction, not only could he not be lower than level 25, he also had to complete a bunch of troublesome quests. At that time, the closed beta only lasted for 2 months. Most people were busy exploring the dungeon, so they didn't waste time on this quest. But Chun Xiang had traveled all over the place during the closed beta, so he had seen many things. He had never heard of a faction leader personally inviting a level 20 player. No, he's right next to me. If we could video chat, I'll let him say hi to you. Everyone knew that Wang Yu wouldn't lie to them, but when they heard Wang Yu say this, they still couldn't accept it. After all, other people had to put in a lot of effort to join the faction, but this brat was begging to join. The difference was too big. What's in it for you to ask him? Mingdu urged. Wang Yu was a bit embarrassed as he said, "That's not good. It's not like Wang Yu doesn't have a bad record, but it's because he has something on him." Wang Yu was in the right. Right now, Edwin was just inviting him. How could he have a nerve to rip him off? The Chuanjin B's face was much thicker than Wang Yu's. He quickly persuaded Wang Yu. "TC to fat sheeps into our door. It's a waste not to rip him off." Wang Yu looked like he was in a difficult position. As a super NPC, Edwin had high AI. When he saw Wang Yu's expression, he immediately smiled and said, "Don't worry. As the first player to join the Dark Faction, and one that I personally invited, you can pick a rare skill and a piece of equipment of your class." He said, "I can pick the skill and equipment." Wang Yu sent Edwin's conditions into the channel. Mingdu was the first to shout, "F***CK me, agree to it. The equipment in the faction is good stuff, and they're all dark gold quality." "All right," Wang Yu replied, then raised his head and said to Edwin, "I agree." Edwin's expression immediately turned serious when he saw Wang Yu agree. "We better think this through. Once you join the Dark Faction, all your friends and companions in the Light Faction will become your enemies. You must fight them to the death." Wait. Wang Yu hurriedly waved his hand and asked in the channel, "Are you guys planning to join the Dark Faction in the future?" The group thought for a moment and said, "About that, I haven't considered it. But as a member of the clergy, Wuji can't join the Dark Faction, right?" "Yes, that's right," Wuji said calmly. "The base is still here, and I have no plans to join the Dark Faction." "Oh, I know what to do." Wang Yu closed the chat window and said to Edwin, "About that, I think I'll pass." "What a pity," Edwin sighed and said, "You only have one chance. If you reject this time, you'll have to wait until you're level 25 to join the faction again. By then, you'll have to do honorable missions. You should know that the earlier you join the faction, the more benefits you'll get." "Huh, I made up my mind. That's it, I'm going back. Goodbye, Lord Apostle." With that, Wang Yu waved at Edwin and left the Dark Faction. Wang Yu might be a newbie in the game, but he was no fool. He could understand these things easily. But to Wang Yu, there was a bottom line for everything. Wang Yu basically had no friends since he was young. It was only when he met the group from Chuanjin in the game that he felt the atmosphere of the friend circle. Even though this group of people was a little shameless, Wang Yu had a good time playing with them. At the very least, these people never cheated their friends. Furthermore, these people had helped Wang Yu in the past. Even though Wang Yu did not say anything, he remembered in his heart that Wang Yu would never abandon his friends for some benefits. After all, skills and equipment could be obtained at any time. Abandoning one friend meant one less. Hearing that Wang Yu had rejected the apostle's invitation, the group was very surprised. They could not understand why Wang Yu would suddenly change his mind. Wang Yu told them righteously that he was not willing to abandon himself because he was a messenger of justice. Wang Yu's words were met with a wave of disdain from the group. Only when they reached level 25 and everyone started doing faction missions did they come to a realization when they encountered the last option. Then, they began to disdain Wang Yu again. That was because after level 20, the players had a chance to choose a new profession. Wuji could choose to specialize as a dark warlock. Returning to Yu Huicheng was as lively as usual. The game world was just like reality. Nothing would change just because someone left. New Year's Eve was approaching, and the 7 days of New Year's Eve activities were still ongoing. It had to be said that Wuji's move was quite ruthless. The firecrackers market was abnormally popular now. The players did not seriously train anymore and began to search for Nian beasts all over the mountains and plains. The players with the ability could kill Nian beasts for points, and the players without the ability could sell firecrackers for money. All of them did not do their jobs properly and wasted 3 times the EXP. Wuji was really a sinner. Wang Yu went all the way to the central street and walked into a dark alley. As usual, he took out a bottle of wine, opened the lid, and placed it beside Hermit. Hermit, who smelled the wine, turned around and saw Wang Yu. He said impatiently, "Let me tell you, this mission is different from other missions. This was personally decided by Lord Martial God. You can't go through the back door." "What?" Wang Yu was surprised. "You can go through the back door in other missions?" People who were good at sports were quick-witted and immediately understood the meaning behind Hermit's words. Hermit knew that he had said something wrong and immediately said with a straight face, "Of course not. Speaking of which, why are you here?" Chapter 155. Genius 1 Second Remember, providing you with exciting novels to read. Quest. Hearing Wang Yu's words, Hermit was in disbelief. Literature building. The quest for a normal player was already very complicated, and the quest for a hidden profession was even more difficult. The profession of a martial artist was very special, much more difficult than the other hidden professions. Wang Yu completed the quest in just 2 days. Even a high-level NPC like Hermit was a little surprised. Yes, Wang Yu took out 5 quest items and handed them to Hermit. Hermit stared at the 5 quest items and mumbled, "Huh? You didn't unseal it? You didn't use the quest item I gave you?" "Quest item? The Eye of Sarah," Hermit said. "Is this it?" Wang Yu took out the eye-like item from his bag. "No one told me how to use it." "That's right," Hermit said. "That's it. You have to first go to the Dark Church to open the boneyard." Hermit started to talk about the quest strategy to Wang Yu. First, go to the Dark Church to clear the boneyard and obtain reputation with the Light faction. Then go to the City of Sin to find the commander and transport the soul of the killer to the Light Crusade camp. Alex would then give the unsealed soul of the killer to Wang Yu. At this time, Wang Yu's reputation with the Light faction would reach 200, and he would be recognized by Judge Willie. He would unseal the Dark Bones and help Wang Yu challenge Arceus in Titan City. Finally, he would go to Heavenly Dragon City to challenge the Dragon Bloodspear god. These quests seemed very difficult, but as long as they found the right entry point, they would be within the player's abilities. "You didn't use it. How did you complete the quest?" Hermit asked immediately. Wang Yu said, "I went to the Holy City to kill the Angel of Judgment." Hermit spat out a mouthful of wine and pointed at Wang Yu. "How dare you? No wonder I sensed the aura of darkness from you." At the same time, Hermit's heart was in turmoil. It was not that he could not do this mission, but if he did so, the difficulty would increase by several levels. This was because this mission started from Darkness City and was to accumulate reputation in the Light faction. Wang Yu, this ruthless person, had actually killed his way through and finally succeeded. Hermit had never thought that one day he would be so shocked by a level 20 beginner. When Wang Yu heard that the mission could be solved so easily, he was rather displeased. "You didn't tell me," Hermit said shamelessly. "As long as you are willing, I can open the back door for you. F*CKU. Wang Yu glared at Hermit and said, "What do we do now?" If the 5 quest items were not unsealed, they probably couldn't complete the quest. "That's easy," Hermit said. "Give me 5 gold coins." Wang Yu secretly spat out a mouthful of blood and took out 5 gold coins and handed them over. The hermit smiled sinisterly as he took the gold coin and placed it in his dirty pocket. Then he muttered an incantation, and 2 rays of light, one black and one white, flew into Sarah's pupil. Sarah's pupil turned into 5 rays of light and injected into 5 mission items. The system's special effect flashed, and the 5 quest items emitted a faint light. Hermit casually took the quest items and waved his other hand. Wang Yu received the notification that the quest had been completed. System notification. You have completed the 4th round of Warrior's Heart, Mark of Martial God. Grade S. You have successfully advanced to the Hidden Profession, Martial Arts Expert. Hidden Profession, Martial Arts Expert. After training, the strength of a martial artist will increase by leaps and bounds. Combining the strengths of various professions, They will finally become an expert of their generation. Genius. Every increase in level gives 8 free attribute points. Internal and external proficiency. Can use all the skills and talents of the Grandmaster of Combat profession. Perfection. 20% chance to edit a combo into a skill. Weapon Master. Proficiency in all weapons. After equipping a weapon, attack power increases by 15%. The difference in attributes after the profession advancement and before was like heaven and earth. Other than the additional attributes of the passive skills being stronger, one could also choose their own talents. Before a player advanced to level 20, their talents were automatically unlocked by the system. For example, other than the common firearm proficiency, the Grandmaster of Combat's Lithe as a Swallow was a level 0 talent. After advancing to level 10, Chi Masters would obtain Irresistible Force, which increased attack power, and Strikers would obtain Swift as a Tiger, which increased attack speed. Wang Yu's martial arts belonged to the hidden profession, so his level 10 talent was called like a fleeing rabbit, which increased movement speed. Wang Yu did not lack movement speed, so this talent was rather useless. Now that he had advanced, in addition to automatically learning Irresistible Force and Swift as a Tiger, he could also learn Chi Mastery, which increased his magic attack, and Fierce Punches and Kicks, which increased his physical attack. In addition to Heart of Tranquil Water, which recovered his HP and MP as a martial arts expert, Wang Yu's strength could really be described as advancing by leaps and bounds. The next step was to learn skills. The reason why advanced skills were so powerful was mainly because before level 20, apart from rare skills, players could only learn beginner skills. After advancing, they could learn intermediate skills. Intermediate skills not only had high damage, but they were also the signature skills of the profession. After advancing, Striker's profession was called Monk, and after advancing, Chi Master's profession was called Cloud Strider. The level 20 Tiger Palm and Chi Blast that Wang Yu had learned were the signature skills of these two professions. Tiger Palm grabs and attacks the enemy with the palm, ignores 30% of the enemy's defense, and deals 150% physical damage. Chi Blast condenses chi into a chi ball and releases it. When detonated, deals 200% magic damage in a 50-yard radius. Grabs that dealt armor penetration damage and small area magic damage were the signature skills of these two professions. After learning the skills, Wang Yu went offline. Wang Yu had always been very restrained when playing games, but today, he made an exception and played for an entire day. It wasn't that he couldn't control himself, but he couldn't control himself in the game. After playing for an entire day, Wang Yu's stomach was already growling. After going offline, Wang Yu saw that Mu Zixian wasn't in the bedroom. There was the sound of water in the kitchen, so he rushed into the kitchen and shouted, "Honey, I'm hungry." "Got it. Food is ready," Mu Zixian called out. "Okay." Wang Yu picked up a towel to wipe his face and ran into the kitchen. Seeing that Mu Zixian had made a bunch of delicious food, he reached out to grab it. Mu Zixian hit Wang Yu's hand with her chopsticks and said angrily, "Are your hands dirty? I'll go wash them now." Wang Yu smiled and walked to the bathroom. "Wait." Mu Zixian picked up a piece of meat, blew on it, and stuffed it into Wang Yu's mouth. "Follow me to the supermarket downstairs to buy some rice and noodles. It's almost Chinese New Year, and the supermarket closes early. If we're late, they'll close." "Okay." Wang Yu nodded his head. Even though he couldn't do technical work, he could still do physical work like carrying rice and flour. "Oh yeah," Mu Zixian said, "we still have to go to the bank to withdraw some cash. It's inconvenient to not have cash during Chinese New Year." "Okay, I'll listen to you." Wang Yu smiled. The bank was next to the supermarket. Now that the Chinese New Year was approaching, the bank wasn't closed. There were many people withdrawing money. Chinese New Year was to take a look at the year's income and enjoy the year's harvest. Mu Zixian took a number at the door. Then, the two of them sat quietly in the corner of the hall, waiting for the teller to call them. At this moment, 4 men walked in from outside. After the 4 of them walked into the hall, they looked around at the people in the hall. Wang Yu suddenly felt a strong, murderous aura, so he turned his face away subconsciously. Wang Yu's eyes met with one of the men. There was no expression in the man's gray eyes. The strong aura of death made Wang Yu frown. When Wang Yu was young, he learned martial arts from his grandfather. He had met an expert who came from a military background. That person's eyes were almost the same as this guy's, but this person's body was light. It didn't seem like he practiced martial arts, nor did it seem like he had received military training. A fugitive? Thinking of this, Wang Yu looked at the four of them again. Remembering that Mu Zixian was beside him, Wang Yu didn't dare to act rashly. He could only move to Mu Zixian's side and use his shoulder to block Mu Zixian. "Are you cold?" Mu Zixian asked. Wang Yu shook his head and said, "No. Let's go back and come again tomorrow." Ugh. Mu Zixian was stunned for a moment. Then she said, "Okay." After being married to Wang Yu for so long, Mu Zixian knew Wang Yu's temper better than anyone else. She knew that he must have his reasons for making such a decision, so she didn't ask why. Bang! Just as the two of them stood up and were about to leave, there was a sudden gunshot, followed by a shout, "Don't move." Wang Yu looked towards the source of the voice. The burly man who looked at him just now was holding a gun and pointing at the camera that had been smashed by bullets. He was cursing at the crowd. The other three took out their tools and smashed the bulletproof glass of the counter. They reached out and pulled the counter staff out. Help! China had banned guns for a long time. The ordinary people had never seen such a scene. They were so scared that they covered their heads and fled. Bang! Bang! Another two gunshots rang out. Two people who were about to rush to the door were shot and fell into a pool of blood. Using a gun to kill people was much more intimidating than using a gun to hit a camera. The panicking crowd was scared silly on the spot. They trembled and froze there. "Squat down!" The burly man pointed at the crowd and shouted again. Wang Yu gently pressed Mu Zixian's shoulder and squatted on the ground. Then he whispered, "Don't be afraid." Mu Zixian nodded her head vigorously. Mu Zixian's life experience was richer than Wang Yu's. She knew that it was the end of the year, and everyone wanted to have a good new year. These guys were no exception. They just wanted to rob a sum of money. Most likely, they wouldn't kill anyone. However, Wang Yu sensed the smell of blood on the four of them. He knew that this matter couldn't be that simple. He didn't move because he was afraid of scaring Mu Zixian. The bank near the neighborhood was only a branch. It was very small. The burly man looked down at the people squatting on the ground. Everyone's actions were obvious. Everyone was like Mu Zixian. They thought that they were just robbing them, so no one dared to call the police to anger them. Time passed by. Soon, under the threat of the other three, the counter staff took out stacks of red notes. Soon, it filled the duffel bags on the shoulders of the three people. "Old fool, let's go." After the three of them filled their duffel bags, a guy with a scar on his face turned his head and called out to the gunman. He lowered his head and ran out. "No." The spear-wielding man called Old Four said, "They saw our appearance." Chapter 156. Scarface's voice was not loud, but at this time, it was completely silent. His words were clearly passed into everyone's ears. Hearing Scarface's words, everyone was no longer calm. One by one, they began to panic. Scarface did not hesitate and pulled the bolt of his gun to shoot. The people closest to the four people screamed. The scene was chaotic again. Wang Yu and his wife were not far from the four people. Hearing the sound of the gun bolt, Wang Yu pushed Mu Zixian down under the reception desk and then grabbed the pen used to fill in forms on the table and threw it out. The scene was chaotic. The four criminals did not notice Wang Yu's actions. Seeing the crowd in chaos, they raised their guns and shot. Suddenly, they saw a black object flying over. Mournful screams sounded almost at the same time. Other than Scarface, the other three people dropped their guns to the ground. They all covered their eyes and squatted on the ground. Black and purple blood flowed out from the gaps of their hands. Between their index and middle fingers, there was a pen. At the same time, Wang Yu kicked a few times with his right foot, kicking the pistol on the ground into the crowd. "Second brother, third brother, fourth brother, what's wrong with you guys?" Scarface was shocked when he saw this. He turned around and was about to run out, but Wang Yu rushed over first. F***CK. You're the one playing tricks. Scarface saw Wang Yu rushing over and cursed. He raised his gun and shot. Wang Yu's eyes narrowed slightly. He suddenly stretched out his right hand and placed his index finger behind the trigger of Scarface's gun. No matter how hard Scarface tried, he could not pull it at all. You! Scarface panicked. Wang Yu's wrist suddenly pressed down. Aya! Scarface screamed and let go of the hand holding the gun. Wang Yu stretched his left hand forward and caught the gun in his hand. Then he pressed it against Scarface's forehead. Don't mess around. This is a real gun. Seeing Wang Yu's ferocity, Scarface was so scared that he almost peed his pants. Wang Yu smashed the gun into Scarface's head and threw it to the terrified security guard. Call the police, Wang Yu said, then exerted force on his arm. Crack! There was an ear-piercing sound of bones breaking. Scarface's arm was broken by Wang Yu. Scarface also knelt on the ground, and the counterstaff also sounded the alarm. Everyone evacuate. As he spoke, Wang Yu had already returned to his seat. He pulled Mu Zixian up and ran out of the business hall with the crowd. After the two of them ran back to the district, Mu Zixian still hadn't reacted and was still in shock. They actually wanted to kill someone. Wang Yu quickly comforted him. Don't be afraid. It's okay now. They won't be able to do evil anymore. Mu Zixian slapped Wang Yu's face and said with a sobbing tone, How can I not be scared? They have guns in their hands. Why are you charging at them? If something happened to you, what would I do? It was true that Wang Yu was a martial arts practitioner, but no matter how high his martial arts were, he couldn't be invulnerable. Otherwise, his martial arts wouldn't have declined. After all, in this day and age, if he wanted to knock someone down, he could be done with one shot. Was there a need to go through the trouble of learning martial arts? Wang Yu reached out to grab Mu Zixian's hand and put it on his face. He said apologetically, I'm sorry. I made you worry. Wang Yu had practiced the empty-handed gun snatching move for a long time in the game. He didn't expect it to be put to use today. However, the situation was indeed quite dangerous. A real gun was much more murderous than the numbers in the game. But with the situation just now, if Wang Yu hadn't resisted, everyone would have been killed. Even if it wasn't for the others, just for Mu Zixian, Wang Yu could not charge forward. Sigh. Mu Zixian sighed. She touched Wang Yu's face and said, In today's society, there are too many things that martial arts can't solve. Husband, promise me, don't do this again in the future. Got it. Wang Yu nodded. His heart was full of emotions. Martial arts? Can it really only be used to play games? Is this the tragedy of a skill passed down, or the tragedy of reality? After returning home, Mu Zixian was still in a state of shock. When she thought of what happened just now, she was afraid. She couldn't help but pull Wang Yu and repeatedly said, It's too dangerous outside. It's safer to stay at home. Wang Yu agreed and said, After Chinese New Year, my wife, you should resign. Resign? Mu Zixian asked inexplicably why. I'll support you. It's quite chaotic outside. Besides, I don't want my woman to be someone else's subordinate. Wang Yu said faintly. The traditional concept of education made Wang Yu somewhat chauvinistic since he was young. Although it was quite sad to be supported by his wife for half a year, he had the ability now, so he couldn't let his wife suffer anymore. The words I'll support you were simple to say, but in Mu Zixian's ears, it made her feel warm. Which woman didn't want her husband to be a dragon? Even if Wang Yu was decadent, Mu Zixian had always believed that he would have a promising day. Now that Wang Yu had done it, Mu Zixian felt that her child had grown up. Actually, I want to open a small shop. I don't need to earn too much. It's enough to support our family. Mu Zixian said with a happy face. Wang Yu said generously, All right, isn't it just opening a shop? Your husband will approve. Mu Zixian quickly blushed and said, I'm just saying. The shops are very expensive now. The main thing is that I don't know what to sell. The economy isn't good now, and I'm losing money. It's okay, we just need to sell things that earn money, Wang Yu said with a smile. Mu Zixian curled her lips and said, Bullsh***. I only know that you're called Iron Ox, but I don't know that you're good at bragging. How can it be a good thing in this world that only earns money without losing money? Wang Yu pointed to the four ladies' room and said, "What do you think? You want to kidnap and sell women?" Mu Zixian was shocked. "That's illegal." Wang Yu's face was full of black lines. Hey, what are you thinking? Am I that kind of person? I'm talking about opening a shop in the game." "Opening a shop in the game?" Mu Zixian was stunned for a moment. "Can I?" Wang Yu said, "Of course you can. It's a guaranteed profit." Actually, Wang Yu had thought about this for a long time. The equipment in the game was not at all cheaper than the clothes in real life. Moreover, the game was not like real life, where everything had a cost. The game only needed a piece of equipment, a network cable, and a bit of lag, and the equipment could be obtained. Compared to the real world, the cost was so much lower. Wang Yu's best friend in Xuanzhen was Mingjian Daoxue, who dragged him into this. Normally, Wang Yu and Mingjian Daoxue would talk a lot about the rules of the game market. Wang Yu knew that in the game, high-end and rare goods were auctioned off, while low-end goods were sold at street stalls. Although the profits from high-end goods were high, there was a shortage of goods. Moreover, for every transaction, the system would take a processing fee, and the country would also take a personal income tax. In the long run, unless it was a professional player with a sufficient supply, like Mingjian Daoxue, no one else could earn much. There was a wide supply of low-end goods, and there weren't many processing fees. However, the market for low-end professional players was too competitive. You wouldn't be able to earn anything in a day, so it was a waste of time. It was better to be a gold collector. Now that Wang Yu was at the top of the game, he had no lack of good equipment and rare skills. Li Shui was also the only alchemist in the entire server who could make intermediate health potions and concoctions. In terms of supply, Wang Yu didn't need to worry about anything. Therefore, at that time, Wang Yu had been thinking about how she could take advantage of her advantages to make money. Mingji and Daoxue needed to have a keen sense of the market and values, as well as a lot of experience and connections. Not to mention Wang Yu, who wasn't good at socializing. Very few people in the game could get close to Mingji and Daoxue. Realizing his weakness, Wang Yu completely cut off this idea. Today, after Mu Zixian mentioned it, Wang Yu suddenly thought of opening a shop in the game. Like traditional online games, Rebirth also had a shop system. If you gave a system enough gold, you could buy a shop as long as you paid the monthly tax. The only difference was that in the simulation, the shop owner couldn't sell the goods and go out to play like in other online games. In this game, it had to be a one-to-one transaction. In Rebirth, there were quite a number of players who had opened up shops. However, not everyone could do it. This kind of person-to-person trading mode was also one of the troublesome aspects. After all, even professional players had to take time out to collect goods. More importantly, it wasn't easy to get good things in the game, so the potions and equipment sold by the players were more or less the same as those sold in the system. Some even bought from the system to keep up appearances, and the price was neither high nor low. The system shop was open 24 hours, and with the same price, who would buy from a player's shop? This way, the players who opened the shop could not even afford to pay the tax. Mu Zixian was different. With Wang Yu and his group of friends, she didn't have to worry about the supply. Moreover, she wasn't good at games, so running a shop was the best choice. So when Mu Zixian mentioned opening a shop, Wang Yu immediately agreed. At this time, Li Shui and the others logged off the game. Wang Yu and Mu Zixian told Li Shui about the plan, and Li Shui was quite interested. Because Li Shui's potions were sold through auctions, and with the ridiculous processing fees, she didn't notice it once or twice, but after a long time, she couldn't help but feel the pinch. But then again, buying a shop in the system is quite expensive. Li Shui mumbled. The system was a scammer. Buying a shop in the main city was no cheaper than buying a shop in real life. The shop at the intersection of Central Street and Trade Street was even more expensive than the Golden Road in the city center where Wang Yu was. In the current game, other than the players with money and the leaders of the big guilds, who could afford that much money? Wang Yu smiled faintly. Money isn't a problem. As long as there's a sufficient supply, it's fine. When it came to the amount of gold they had, Wang Yu was quite confident. Li Shui said, "Now that everyone can run dungeons, the material market is quite full, and I can definitely keep up with the demand." Chapter 157. Genius 1 second remember, providing you with exciting novels to read. It was almost New Year's Eve. On this day of family reunion, thousands of families in Huaxiao were filled with family happiness. However, in the darkness of the night, there was a person carrying a backpack, running out of the city in a panic. This person was Brother Hui, the hooligan whose arm had been broken by Wang Yu and whose jade token had been tricked by the old hooligan. Brother Huey's figure was very disheveled, and it was obvious that he was very scared. This was because he had received news that Li Yusin had been arrested. It seemed that because of his numerous evil deeds, he was found by the police at the end of the year. Brother Hui wouldn't believe this reason, even if he was beaten to death. After Brother Hui received the news that Li Yusin had been arrested, he immediately went to Li Yusin's pawn shop. Everything was in good condition, except for the jade token. Moreover, it was said that someone from a nearby branch was arrested for robbing a bank today. It was said that the 4 suspects were barehanded and had their arms broken. Others might not know what happened, but Brother Hui knew that the 4 unlucky people must have met a kung fu expert at this time. A kung fu expert was like a nightmare in Brother Huey's eyes. After hearing about this, Brother Hui was like a bird startled by the mere twang of a bowstring. He did not want to stay in L City for even a moment longer. Who cares who it is? I'll just be a good person in the future. In the L City Detention Center, the light in the interrogation room was very dim. A white-haired but energetic old man sat in front of the table. Beside the old man stood 2 people. One of them was tall and straight, with a chiseled face and a resolute expression. From the gold star on this person's shoulder, one could tell that this person had a high status. This person was the commander of L City's military, Major General Lu Shujun. The other person was Lu Wenxuan, the director of L City's Public Security Bureau. The 2 of them were very careful with the old man, especially Lu Shujun, who was very respectful to the old man. Teacher Wang, I've brought him here, Lu Shujun said respectfully. The old man nodded and smiled. Little Lu, it's the new year. This old man has really troubled you. Teacher Wang, you're someone who has contributed to the country. This is what we should do, Lu Shujun hurriedly said. The old man smiled and did not say anything else. Instead, he turned his face to the middle-aged man in his 50s who was handcuffed to a bench in front of him. This middle-aged man was Li Yusin. At this time, Li Yusin's expression was very lazy. He asked Lu Wenxuan lazily, Director Lu, what is the meaning of this? You arrested me early in the morning and interrogated me at night. I've been quite well all these years. Li Yusin's family. Li Yusin had been in Jianghu for many years and was very familiar with both the underworld and the underworld. He was quite familiar with Lu Wenxuan, so he was not too afraid. Lu Wenxuan's face darkened, and he said coldly, Watch your words. Look where you are. Lu. Li Li year. Lu Lu and Lu man Lu day. Lu year. Lu and 1. Lu said Lu of. You faced Lu God Lu of Chun said. Watch of. Liang Fei Yang. Lu Wenxuan said, Humph, you're very cunning. Who knows what kind of tricks you'll come up with? In fact, in a government organization like this, other than those who did not know the immensity of heaven and earth and had seen too many gangsters, anyone with a bit of brain would not dare to be presumptuous. The reason why Li Yusin was handcuffed was because Lu Wenxuan knew that this old man Wang had a powerful background. He was afraid that he would cause trouble. Hee. The old man laughed and walked to Li Yusin's side. With 2 fingers, he snapped Li Yusin's handcuffs in the middle. Then, he said with a smile, Director Lu, it's all right. No one will dare to do anything in front of me. Although the lights in the interrogation room were dim, visibility was not bad. Seeing the old man's skills, other than Lu Shujun, Lu Wenxuan, and Li Yusin's eyeballs almost popped out. This kind of strength was unheard of. Those were handcuffs. Was this old man's hands iron pincers? Seeing Li Yusin's expression, old man Wang said with a smile, Do you know who I am? No, I don't. Li Yusin shook his head like a rattle drum. What a joke. Nothing good would come out of knowing this kind of person. Li Yusin had been in the underworld for so many years. Naturally, he knew the principle of self-preservation. Have you heard of the Wang family of Jiangbei? Old man Wang asked with a smile. His sharp eyes seemed to be able to see through people's hearts. The Wang family of Jiangbei. Li Yuzin's pupil shrank. He seemed to remember something and quickly shook his head. No, I don't know. You're lying. Old man Wang smiled and took out a jade tablet from his pocket. He waved it in front of Li Yuzin and said, I heard that this tablet came from you. It's even under the banner of our Wang family's leader. The jade tablet in old man Wang's hand was the one that Wang Yu gave to brother Hui. Seeing the jade tablet, Li Yuzin knelt on the ground with a thud. Old man Wang, this is a misunderstanding. Even if I have the guts, I wouldn't dare to touch your Wang family's things. This was given to me by a hooligan. Li Yuzin had seen old man Wang's strength. In the past, Li Yuzin did not believe in the existence of Kung Fu. However, seeing was believing. At this moment, half of the handcuffs were still hanging on the bench. He had to believe it. Li Yuzin firmly believed that if his finger were to poke his body, his flesh and blood would definitely not be as hard as steel. What's the name of that hooligan? Old man Wang put away the jade tablet and continued to ask. His name is Li Yanhui, a local of El City. He lives in Shiyuan District, Unit 2, East House on the 4th floor. His phone number is... In order to save his old life, Li Yuzin dragged out Brother Huey's detailed address in one breath. Old man Wang turned his head and said to Lu Wenshuan, Write it down. Lu Wenshuan quickly said, I've written it down. I'll send someone to check it now. Old man Wang nodded and said, Take him away and bring the others in. After Li Yuzin was taken away by the guards, 4 people were brought in not long after. These 4 people did not wear prison uniforms, but hospital clothes. 3 of them had gauze covering their eyes, and one of them had a cast hanging on his arm. Although they said they were being interrogated, it seemed like they were dragged from the hospital. What did they do? Old man Wang could not help but ask when he saw the 4 guys' appearance. Lu Wenshuan said, Rob a bank. Yo, old man Wang said with slight amusement. Young people are quite hot-tempered. How did you become like this after robbing a bank? Oomph. The guy with the broken arm twisted his neck and ignored old man Wang. Robbing with a gun and being beaten like this with bare hands. If word got out, the 4 of them would have no face to continue in the criminal world. Hee, I know what's going on even if you don't say anything. Old man Wang smiled and walked in front of the man with the broken arm. He suddenly extended his right hand and wrapped it around the man's other intact arm. Then he used all his strength and said, Did the person who beat you break your arm like this? You? How did you know? The man with the broken arm asked in horror. Old man Wang's technique was the same as Wang Yu's. Even the strength was not inferior. However, old man Wang had control and didn't hurt anyone. The old man snorted coldly. Humph. I taught him this black dragon pillar when he was 5 years old. With that said, old man Wang asked the 3 guys who were blind in one eye, Were your eyes blinded by a pen? The 3 of them nodded. Is that so? Old man Wang turned around and waved his hand on the interrogation table. 3 pins flew out and hit 3 clothes hooks on the wall. The 3 of them said, Honestly, we don't know how we threw it, but the 3 of us were hit at the same time. Old man Wang stroked his beard and said, 3 blossoms. This kid's aptitude is really... Do you still remember what that person looks like? I remember. Old 4, who had exchanged glances with Wang Yu, hurriedly said, He's more than one. 8 meters tall, very strong, square face, thick eyebrows and big eyes, and there's a beautiful lady beside him. Oh, lady? What does she look like? From Old 4's description, old man Wang guessed that the person was undoubtedly Wang Yu. However, this lady was a new clue. Big eyes, high-nose bridge, oval face. Old 4 recalled. He had only glanced at Mu Zixin and didn't have much of an impression. As Old 4 spoke, Lu Wenshuan drew a picture. When Old 4 finished, Lu Wenshuan picked up the drawing and asked, Does she look like this? Her chin isn't that sharp, but the rest is about the same. Old 4 said. After Lu Wenshuan modified it, old man Wang picked up the drawing and looked at it. Oh, not bad. You have good taste. Find out what her name is. All right. Lu Wenxuan picked up the drawing and was about to walk out when Old Man Wang pointed at the four and said, "Bring the four of them down, too." Robbing and killing during the new year. If it were me with my temper when I was young, I would have crushed them to death. After Lu Wenxuan brought them out, Lu Shujun asked in puzzlement, "Teacher, what's going on? You can't even celebrate the new year in peace and came all the way here. Is there a traitor in the Wang family?" Sigh. Old Man Wang sighed and said, "Don't mention it. If it's a traitor, is it worth it for me to make a trip? It's my precious grandson." Second young master caused trouble again? Lu Shujun was rather familiar with Old Man Wang. He knew that the Wang family had a second young master in this generation who was a restless person. Although second young master is mischievous, his temper is worry-free. It's the eldest. Old Man Wang shook his head. Eldest young master? How is that possible? Lu Shujun said in surprise. Eldest young master is obsessed with martial arts and has no distractions. He doesn't look like someone who causes trouble. Old Man Wang said gloomily, "It's all my fault. I thought that with the Wang family's huge business, there would be someone to support the head of the family in the future. That's why I let him practice martial arts since he was young and didn't teach him anything else. Who knew that he messed up his brain from practicing martial arts? His temper is as stubborn as a cow. Look, because of a lady, he ran away from home." Lu Shujun was speechless. Even the powerful Wang family couldn't avoid such trivial family matters. As the two of them chatted, Lu Wenxuan returned with a file in his hand. "How is it? Did you find anything?" "Yes, the lady is called Mu Zixian and her husband is called Wang Yu. They settled here half a year ago and now live in Moonlight Bay area." "That's pretty fast," Old Man Wang said in surprise. There were so many people in the city. Even if there was information on everyone, it would be very troublesome to check their looks one by one. Lu Wenxuan laughed dryly and said, "To tell you the truth, young Miss Yang asked me to check on this lady not long ago. Young Miss Yang lives opposite them now. I even helped her rent a house." "Young Miss Yang?" Old Man Wang was slightly stunned. "Oh my, this is going to be interesting. Then, should we continue? Let's stop here. It's best to let the youngsters handle their own matters," Old Man Wang said helplessly. Chapter 158. Genius 1 Second Remember, providing you with exciting novels to read. "Brother Daoxue, what are you busy with?" Wang Yu did not like to hesitate. Once he thought of something, he would do it immediately. The next day, after entering the game, Wang Yu could not wait to contact Daoxue. Profession change quest. "I'm looking for a dog for Aunt Moses," Daoxue said helplessly. Profession change quests were all these boring things. "Where do I apply for a shop?" Wang Yu asked. As a customer service employee, Mu Zixian would definitely know where to apply for a shop. The reason why Wang Yu asked this was because Mu Zixian had taught him. Wang Yu's current actions were more or less trying to snatch Ming Jian Daoxue's job. Right now, he only wanted to seek Ming Jian Daoxue's opinion. However, the game market was so big that Daoxue could not swallow it all by himself, so there was probably no conflict. Of course, if the two of them could work together, it would be even better. "Shop? You want to open a shop?" Daoxue asked with some surprise. "Yes," Wang Yu said. "I feel that with our supply, opening a shop is much better than other ways." Wang Yu shared his idea with Ming Jian Daoxue. After hearing it, Ming Jian Daoxue immediately said excitedly, "Good idea. I didn't know you were so knowledgeable about doing business." Wang Yu laughed. "People who have not seen the world have ideas." "No, your idea is very good. Let's work together. How about I take 30% of the shares? Just treat me as a technical consultant." Daoxue said, "That's great." Hearing this, Wang Yu was also extremely excited. Famous Sword Daoxue was a veteran in the circle. Famous Sword Daoxue could give a rough estimate of the price of the equipment on the market with just a glance. This ability was definitely not something that could be learned in a day or two. Daoxue said happily, "That's great. If you want to apply for a shop, you have to go to the city lord's mansion. Just let me know when you pay, and I'll mail the money to you." His real name was Jian Daoxue, and he had long since grown tired of his current mode. After all, he was just playing a game, and the game company had to take advantage of him. No one would be happy. Following Ming Qin's guidance, Wang Yu arrived at the city hall. Wang Yu's honor points were very high, so the guards did not stop him. Wang Yu walked straight into the city hall. Inside the hall, the city lord was still working as usual. When he saw Wang Yu enter, he quickly got up and said, "Respected warrior, you're here. Is there anything I can help you with?" "I want to apply for a shop." Wang Yu stated his intention. "Shop?" The city lord thought for a moment and said, "Oh, honorable hero, most of the empty rooms in Yu Huichang have been rented out to the major forces, guilds. Currently, there is a shortage of empty rooms, so I'm afraid you can't apply for it for the time being." "No way," Wang Yu said unhappily. I clearly saw a row of empty rooms at the intersection of Exchange Road and Central Street. At the same time, Wang Yu thought to himself, could it be that this old fellow also wants some kind of reward? Hermit's shameless behavior made Wang Yu deeply doubt the integrity of NPCs. "There," the city lord said a little awkwardly. "There's already someone there." "Someone? Who is it? I'll go talk to him," Wang Yu said. In Rebirth, players could trade houses with NPCs, but the premise was that the owner of the house had a high AI. That person is no longer there. The city lord was a little embarrassed. F***CK. Wang Yu gloomily took out 2 gold coins from his bag and said, "That should be enough, right?" The city lord took the gold coins with a frown and stuffed them into his pocket. He said with disdain, "You want to ask someone for help with 2 gold coins? You've never given a gift in the real world, right?" Wang Yu secretly swallowed a mouthful of blood. This NPC official actually knew how to ask for bribes. "What the F***CK?" Wang Yu sighed and took out another 10 gold coins and stuffed them into the city lord's hands. "City lord, this should be enough, right?" The city lord nodded and took the gold coins. "Actually, what I say doesn't count." F***CK, taking money and not doing anything? Wang Yu was furious. "Give me back my money. This is against the rules." The city lord spread out his hands and said, "We only have the function of receiving money. We don't have the function of throwing money away. The system is afraid that we will be tricked by players, so it's specially set this up for us. I don't believe that there's anyone more shameless than you." The city lord laughed but did not say anything. "Do you believe that I won't sue you?" Wang Yu was infuriated and began to use his ultimate move. After the battle of wits and courage with Hermit, Wang Yu knew that although the system NPC was shameless, taking money and not doing anything was also a black mark. He would definitely sue the city lord. Seeing that Wang Yu was serious, the city lord smiled apologetically. "Brave sir, although I don't have the final say, someone else does." "Who?" "The original owner of the houses." "Are you messing with me?" Wang Yu said angrily. I wouldn't dare." The city lord smiled and said, "The original owner of those houses is called Kashmir, the former leader of the Yu Huicheng Merchant Association. When the darkness invaded, he joined the Dark Army. I heard that he is now in hell. As long as you find him and take back the title deed, you can use those houses." System notification. You have activated the hidden quest opening a trade route. Quest level A. Do you accept? Accept. Wang Yu did not hesitate to press confirm. System notification. You have activated the hidden quest opening a trade route. Quest level A. Find the title deed of the Merchant Association. Very good. Respected brave sir, I did not misjudge you. The city lord patted Wang Yu's shoulder and said, "As long as you find the title deed and bring Yu Huicheng back to its former glory, I will definitely reward you handsomely." "Got it." Wang Yu nodded weakly, then walked out of the city lord's mansion. After leaving the city lord's mansion, Wang Yu realized that there was no hint on the quest at all. It only asked him to find the title deed. Is this F***king messing with me? As expected, NPCs are not good people. However, when Wang Yu carefully recalled the scene just now, he vaguely heard the city lord say that Kashmir was in hell. This bastard. Hell, it's still hell. Wang Yu already had 2 hell quests, and now there was another one. Wang Yu could be considered to have gotten used to it. How is it? Seeing that Wang Yu did not reply after a long time, Ming Qian sent a message to ask, "Let me go do a quest." Wang Yu shared the quest with Ming Qian. Ming Qian's heart palpitated. Another F** King item search quest. After a day, Ming Qian had been played by those heartless NPCs to the point where he would turn pale at the mention of quest. Find a title deed? Why isn't there a specific location? Ming Qian asked in confusion after reading the quest description. Normal lost item search quests would give a general location, such as finding ducks in a pond, dogs in a toilet, and so on. Wang Yu's quest only had a single F** King line, find the title deed. Wang Yu said, "Yes. This quest requires clearing dungeons." Clearing dungeons? That's easy, Ming Qian said. Chapter 159. Hell Level Instance Dungeon. Mingjian Daoxue was speechless. Players who had cleared dungeons knew that the monsters in dungeons were much stronger than monsters in the wild. Normal dungeons were fine, as the levels of the monsters were fixed. For example, the Scarlet Church was a level 15 dungeon with level 20 monsters. But from elite dungeons onwards, the monsters' levels would increase along with the players' levels. Elite dungeons increased by 5 levels, Abyss dungeons increased by 10 levels, and so on. In Hell level instance dungeons, the monsters' levels were at least 20 levels higher than the players. The level suppression in Rebirth was terrifying. With 20 levels of suppression, without good equipment, one would not even be able to break through the monster's defense. Moreover, every time the difficulty of the dungeon increased, the hidden parts of the dungeon would be revealed. There would be more bosses and monsters. So, without a strategy, it was extremely easy to get wiped out. In Rebirth, normal dungeons were just projections of Hell-level instance dungeons. The strength of the monsters was only a portion of the monsters in Hell-level instance dungeons. The monsters in Hell-level instance dungeons were real. If the team died in Hell-level instance dungeons, the losses would be severe. In other modes, dying in instance dungeons would at most lose some equipment durability, not even 10% of experience. But in Hell-level instance dungeons, dying would not only lose equipment durability, but also directly lose levels. At this stage, losing levels was scarier than losing equipment. After all, they had just completed their job change mission at level 20. If they were to drop to level 19, they would have to start all over again. Thinking about it, they would have to waste time and money to help NPCs with those boring things. How torturous! Mingjian Daoxue still had a face of fear when he mentioned the mission. Because Hell-level instance dungeons were so difficult, players had to form a team of at least 20 people to enter. Players would usually choose to wait until their levels were high, their equipment was better, and they had more friends before returning to Hell-level instance dungeons. Of course, high risk meant high reward. Hell-level instance dungeons were real monsters, and they had many good items. Even the lowest level Scarlet Church could drop dark gold equipment if they got the first kill. Moreover, the bosses in Hell-level instance dungeons were all leaders of the Dark Army. If they got the first kill, it would be a huge event in history. It was a game, other than those with dark hearts, who didn't like to show off and be high profile. To be recorded in history was everyone's dream. What? Is it difficult? Wang Yu asked indifferently. F***CK. Famous Sword Dao Shui collapsed. What did he mean by difficult? It was extremely difficult. I think we should ask Wuji first before making a decision. Famous Sword said. Wuji was the leader of Chuanjin. Although he did not have much prestige, he could be considered as the backbone of Chuanjin. Whenever the guild had any major issues, they would seek Wuji's opinion first. Well, we can fight them, but we'll have to wait until we complete our class advancement. Wuji said after giving it some thought. How many missions do you have left? Wang Yu asked. Mingdu grinned and said, Haha, that Nifa's mission directly increased my completion rate by 20%. I only have one more mission before I'm done. Chun Xiang said gloomily. In order to save you, we set up a fire at the Crusader camp. Our completion rate dropped by 10%, so we'll probably have to do it for another day. It's been hard on you guys, Wang Yu said with some embarrassment. Mingdu smiled and said, hard my ass. No need to be so polite with me. We're all on the same side, so it's only right to help. Hey, you're so generous? Wang Yu asked with some surprise. Everyone looked at Mingdu with disdain and said, nonsense. When we saved you, he was with you. Setting the fire had nothing to do with him. Wuji said again, the most important thing right now is that even if we complete the class advancement mission, we don't have enough manpower. Our Chuanjin only has 8 people who can fight, and the Hell Instance needs at least 20 people. Don't you have any friends? Wang Yu asked. Yes, if you can count it. You have to know that experts like me don't want to associate with others. Wuji said, aren't you all old players? How come you only know these few people? Wang Yu expressed his doubts towards Wuji's pretentious behavior. Soaring Spring said, I know quite a few people, and most of them are enemies. Mingdu agreed. That's right. That's right. It's because we have too many enemies in wuxiao online games that we can't go on anymore. That's why we chose Western fantasy. F***, Old Lee, what are you talking about? Everyone cursed. Wang Yu was speechless. What kind of people were these? Wang Yu hesitated and said, it seems like I have to personally look for people. After all, I'm still considered a normal person, so I'm quite popular. When everyone heard this, they all praised. Iron Ox pretentiously, we lost. Not bad, not bad. A homicidal maniac still says he's popular. This old man has never seen such a shameless person. When it comes to shamelessness, not to mention this old man, even Wuji can't beat him. Brother Spring, Li Jufu, F***. Wang Yu was depressed. After hearing what everyone said, Wang Yu realized that his popularity was probably not as good as Chuanjin and the others. Even so, Wang Yu still opened his friend's list and sent a message. Yu Huicheng, Scarlet Church's Hell Dungeon. Chuanjin's team, message if you're interested. Reality proved that Wang Yu's popularity was indeed better than Chuanjin's. Soon, someone replied, and the first one to reply was Li Shui. Brother Yu, I really want to help, but I can only provide you with some potions. Wang Yu said, we lack people, but we don't lack experts. Just bring the 3 of them and be our cheerleaders. Okay, there were 12 people, even though there were just 4 pretty faces. The second one was Evildoers Run Wild. Boss, you have to find people outside for a dungeon. Your guild is really small. Can you come? I can go offline at any time. F***ck off. This kid was just messing around. The third one was Yangna. Hell Dungeon? Is it fun? I heard it's quite exciting. Wang Yu said honestly. He had never done it before and had only heard about it from others. Wait for me. 13 people. Wang Yu understood Yang Na's strength very well. She was definitely an expert, so he had a higher chance of winning. Next was Tiger. This kid was also someone who would not wake up if there were no benefits. So he asked, are there any benefits? Does being recorded in history count? Wang Yu said, something practical. The equipment is very practical. Okay, Yu Huicheng, right? I'll head over after I finish the mission. Save a spot for me. Don't worry. We don't even know if we can gather enough people. There's no need to worry about not having a spot. Wang Yu was very honest. 14. Next was Blood Rose's team of 3. This surprised Wang Yu. After all, Blood Alliance and Wang Yu were old enemies. Nyoga, I heard that you guys are going to do a Hell Dungeon. Can we come and learn from you? Sure, come on. When Wang Yu heard this, he understood that they were here to freeload on the strategy. Since they were lacking people, then so be it. Chapter 160. After Bloody Rose and the other 2 contacted Wang Yu did not receive any more messages. 17 people, including everyone from Chuanjin, including the cheerleaders, there were only 17 people. They were 3 away from the target of 20 people. What should we do? Wang Yu mumbled and sent a message to Mu Zixin. Wife, what level are you? Just level 15. I'm planning to clear a dungeon. Mu Zixin replied. As a customer service officer, Mu Zixin knew where to level up was faster. Moreover, she had 3 times the experience, so she could reach level 15 in such a short time. Come and help me. Mu Zixin was surprised. How can I do that? I don't even have the confidence to clear a normal dungeon. What if you guys get wiped in hell? It's okay. Just take it as making up the numbers. Wang Yu said. Anyway, there were already 4 people to make up the numbers. One more would not matter. Okay, I'll go over now. Mu Zixin replied. 18 people, 2 more to go. Suddenly, Counterattack Tiger also sent a message to Wang Yu. Are there any more spots? I have a good friend who wants to join the group. How's his strength? Wang Yu asked casually. If it was a normal day, Wang Yu would not care about the strength of others. After all, no matter how amazing that person was, he would not be as amazing as him. However, it was different this time. This was a dungeon, and the difficulty was quite high. He had already brought along 5 cheerleaders. Seeing that they were all on the same side, the people from the Quanzhan sect might not say anything. However, if he brought another cheerleader with the personalities of the people from the Quanzhan sect, they would probably start scolding him. There was even the possibility of them forcefully attacking him in the dungeon. He's an expert, stronger than me. Counterattack Tiger said. Okay, bring him along. Wang Yu said. Wang Yu had seen Tiger's skills before. Although he couldn't compare to Chuanjin, he could be considered an expert among normal players. Moreover, this person was very smart. His magic traps were definitely a great tool to trap bosses. If even Wang Yu thought highly of him, then he shouldn't be too weak. 19, 1 more to go. Wang Yu wanted to send a private message to Brother Eternal Silence and the other 4, but after thinking about it, he gave up on the idea. Apart from their equipment, there was nothing special about them. 1 more. You guys really can't find a single one? Wang Yu asked in the guild channel. Wang Yu didn't believe that this group of people were so despicable that they didn't even have friends. It's not that there aren't any, but in a dungeon like hell, where death is a huge loss, you either have to find an expert or someone who is very close to you. Otherwise, if the whole team dies, it'll be very ugly when we meet again. Wuji explained. The game was more realistic than the real world. Experts wouldn't mingle with newbies because they couldn't play together at all. Even if they were very close, it was very likely that they would turn against each other because of a piece of equipment. It was best not to do risky things with people who weren't very close to each other. Therefore, for a group like Chuanjin that was full of experts, the only friends they could trust was their small group. Sigh. Wang Yu sighed and scrolled through his friends list, hoping to find a friend that he could add. How about we go to the forums? Wang Yu asked tentatively. Wuji said firmly, No, someone will cause trouble. It can't be. It's just a game. How can there be so many bad guys? Wang Yu asked in disbelief. It's hard to say for others, but it might not necessarily involve Chuanjin. Wuji answered honestly. Wang Yu was speechless again. This group of bastards, how many bad things have they done in the past? Just as Wang Yu was at his wit's end, he suddenly received a message. Wang Yu opened his friends list and saw that it was from Mu Zixin. Hubby, where are you? I'm in Yuhuicheng, Mu Zixin said. Wang Yu replied, I'm in the city. I'm at the city hall. Come pick me up. I'm at the teleportation point. Okay, Wang Yu replied and walked to the teleportation point. When he arrived at the teleportation point, Wang Yu saw Mu Zixin looking around. He walked over and grabbed her hand. What are you looking at? Mu Zixin saw Wang Yu and smiled, looking at the sun. I haven't seen the sun in a long time in the game. The scenery here is much better than where I am. The main city that Mu Zixin was in was called Dark Night City. Just like in Yuhuicheng, there was no sun all year round. To be honest, Wang Yu had never paid attention to the scenery after playing the game for so long. A woman's thoughts and a man's were indeed fundamentally different. Take me shopping, Mu Zixin said as she pulled Wang Yu's hand. Shopping. Wang Yu was speechless. There were only equipment shops, weapon shops, and potion shops in the game. What was there to shop? Yeah, let's see if there's any good-looking equipment. Mu Zixin said. Good-looking. Women were indeed powerful. Others chose good equipment, but women chose good-looking equipment. Let's go. Wang Yu helplessly stared blankly for a moment, then pulled Mu Zixin towards the trade street. The trade street was actually the street in front of the city hall. It was filled with players setting up stalls, blocking the road all day long. There were no city guards coming out to take care of them. The trade street was indeed a magical street. Wang Yu followed Mu Zixian from start to finish. He spent 3 gold coins and bought a pile of trash white equipment. Wang Yu happily followed behind. As long as Mu Zixian was happy, everything was fine. When they passed by the entrance of the city hall, Wang Yu suddenly saw a figure. It was a hunchback, sneakily standing not far in front of him. That figure was very familiar, but before Wang Yu could remember who it was, the figure disappeared. It was Stealth. That person was a thief. Wang Yutong didn't know many thief players. The one he was most familiar with was none other than Mingjian Daoxue. However, Mingjian Daoxue's equipment was quite good. Although his mechanical skills were quite high, he still wasn't at the level of a top-tier expert. And this thief had a hunchback. One look, and you could tell that he was a professional assassin. Wang Yu stared at the place where the person disappeared. Wang Yu knew that the thief definitely knew him. He didn't move because he felt that the thief was looking at him. What are you looking at? Mu Zixian stepped on Wang Yu's foot. System notification. You have been maliciously attacked by player Feather Fairy. I'm looking at people. Wang Yu calmly said, People. Mu Zixian followed Wang Yu's gaze, and her face immediately darkened. No wonder I think you've become bad. You're only looking at women when you're playing a game. What are you talking about? Wang Yu gloomily tilted her head slightly. She realized that not far from where the thief had disappeared, there was a group of people walking over. At the front was a lady. That lady was very beautiful. The game could adjust her appearance. Girls were basically all beauties. Her robe was very short, revealing her thighs. Wang Yu was just about to explain to Mu Zixian that he wasn't looking at women when the thief suddenly moved. A dagger appeared behind the girl. Chapter 161. Genius 1 Second Remember, providing you with exciting novels to read. The thief was very skilled. Even without stealth, he was able to attack and defend in an orderly fashion under the siege of 4 warriors. Even though his moves were disorganized and ugly, his reactions were especially fast. He was always able to cast the appropriate skill on his target at the right time. It should be known that in order to accomplish this feat, not only did players need to have fast reactions, but they also needed to have a thorough understanding of the various classes' skills. This sort of data flow wasn't something an ordinary person could grasp. Just from this point alone, this thief was much more powerful than Wang Yu. The thief was very skilled at dodging and attacking. His dagger was fast and steady. He was not at a disadvantage when facing the 4 warriors head-on. As a martial artist, Wang Yu always had a special impression of people with good skills. Therefore, when he saw the thief's skills, he immediately thought of him. He just didn't know what his name was. The 4 warriors fought and retreated. They shouted, "Old fish, you're still trying to hold on? When our people come, let's see where you can run." The thief sneered, "With just the 4 of you? If I want to leave, I can leave at any time." Huh. At this moment, a knight in bright armor surrounded the thief with a group of people. He laughed and said, as expected of the legendary king of mercenaries, "You're very confident." When the players who were setting up stalls saw the badge on the knight's chest, they were shocked. They quickly packed up and retreated. When Wang Yu saw the badge on the knight's chest, he was slightly stunned. This badge looks familiar. When the thief heard this, he struggled to shake off his right hand. The dagger drew an arc in the air and forced the 4 warriors to retreat. He then turned his head and said fiercely, "Humph. Rushi, I have heard. You're quite fast." Rushi, I have heard, laughed and said, "Hee hee, do you think it's a coincidence that they appeared here? I'll ask you again. Are you going to join our Gokuraku Jodo?" "Humph." The thief said coldly, "I'll say it again. I only sell my body, not my soul. Don't think of treating me like a dog." Then the thief pointed his dagger at everyone and said, "Just you wait. As long as you don't kill me, don't even think about living in peace." "Old fish." Being pointed at by the thief, the 4 warriors looked terrified. Rushi smiled and said, "I'm afraid you won't have the chance. The Thieves' Guild is now full of our people." When Wang Yu heard this, he couldn't help but sigh at the ruthlessness of "So I heard." Arranging people in the Thief Guild was obviously to get this thief back to the beginner village. Wang Yu had also chased after others before, but his motive was only to get them to apologize. However, Rui Wan was trying to force them to follow him. It was a game, after all. Everyone wanted to have fun. For someone like Rushi Mai-sent to destroy someone after not being able to force them, this was clearly a problem with their character. Wang Yu still had a bit of a sense of justice. In reality, the family rules were very strict. When he encountered injustice, he couldn't help but want to help. Moreover, this was a game, and he had met this thief once. Thinking of this, Wang Yu walked over and pulled the thief, saying, "Hey, it's you. Long time no see. Why are you fighting with someone again? Give me some face, we can play tomorrow. F***CK. Why is he here?" When the four warriors saw Wang Yu, they subconsciously took a step back. Rushiwon looked at Wang Yu and raised his eyebrows, asking, "Who are you?" "I don't know him." The thief said, "What happened between us has nothing to do with him." At the same time, the thief whispered, "Are you looking for death? Hurry up and leave. I'll help you. Speaking of which, we're your brothers." Wang Yu clearly remembered that this thief also had a group of brothers. The thief looked at the four warriors. Wang Yu followed the thief's gaze. When the four warriors saw Wang Yu staring at them, they lowered their heads and hurriedly took a few steps back. These guys were all around Yu Huichen. Naturally, they knew who this Grandmaster of Combat was. They didn't dare to have any doubts about Wang Yu's strength. Rushi Mai-sent wasn't stupid. Naturally, he could see that Wang Yu and the thief knew each other. However, he was in a good mood after catching the thief today. Therefore, he said to Wang Yu, "You don't know each other? All right, get lost." Wang Yu looked at Rushi Mai-sent and said, "Didn't I say it already? I'll let it go for today. Whatever grudges you two have, we'll talk about it tomorrow." The four warriors all sent messages in the guild channel to persuade him. "Boss, let's go. That Grandmaster of Combat isn't easy to deal with." The four warriors had good intentions, but in the ears of I Hear the Truth, it was rather irritating. Gokura Kajodo was one of the top guilds in the country. Even the biggest guild in Afterglow City, the Blood Alliance, wouldn't dare to say that they would definitely win against Gokura Kajodo. Who was this Grandmaster of Combat? He wasn't someone to be trifled with. Rushi Mai-sent naturally thought that the four warriors were looking down on him. Therefore, he waved his hand and said, "Old Kong, chase him away." As soon as Rusi Win's voice fell, a big warrior walked towards Wang Yu. He pointed the big sword in his hand at Wang Yu and shouted angrily, "I gave you face, but you don't want it? Get lost. Let's talk nicely. Don't point your sword at me." Wang Yu said. Seeing that Wang Yu still dared to act cool, the warrior grinned and shouted, "I'm not just pointing at you, I'm going to cut you." As he said that, he swung his sword at Wang Yu's head. "I'm not looking for trouble." Wang Yu sighed. He reached out his right hand and grabbed the warrior. The warrior lost his balance and was thrown to the ground by Wang Yu. Then, Wang Yu kicked the warrior's chest and turned him in a white light. Hiss! The people from Gokura Kajodo were stunned. Zhu Fa Kong Xiang, an elite expert from Gokura Kajodo. He was second only to Rushi Mai-sent in the whole team. He didn't even get to touch the enemy's face and was instantly killed by a Grandmaster of Combat. Why did it sound like he didn't believe it? Rushi Mai-sent calmed down after the initial shock. He looked at Wang Yu and said, "I'm blind. I didn't expect you to be an expert. How about it? Are you interested in coming to Gokura Kajodo to develop?" Gokura Kajodo is a big guild on the leaderboard. Wang Yu chuckled, pointed at the Taiji symbol on his chest, and said, "I'm from the Chuanjin sect." "You're from Chuanjin?" Everyone was stunned again. The Quanjun sect was definitely famous. This group of supervillains was no less famous in the gaming circle than Gokura Kajodo. Especially in Rebirth, the Quanjin sect had a lot of exposure. Almost all the news was about them, and almost everyone in the game knew about them. "So you're an expert from Chuanjin. Gokura Kajodo has a personal conflict with his brother. I wonder if you can step aside." Rushi Mai-sent's meaning was obvious. No matter how powerful you guys are from Chuanjin, you can't fight against so many people. We don't want to provoke you. so you better not provoke us. Wang Yu turned and asked the bandit, "Do you still have a guild?" "No." The bandit's face was gloomy. It was not a good feeling to be betrayed by friends and family. "That's great." "Damn." The bandit was stunned. How could his grandson speak like that? Wang Yu pointed at the bandit and said, "From now on, he's also a member of Chuanjin." Chapter 162. No matter what game it was, in the early stages of the game, when the guilds needed to develop, they would try their best to avoid war. The bigger the guild, the more it would be like this. After all, war was a waste of manpower and resources. If they only fought, they wouldn't be able to develop. Hence, even a major guild like Pure Land of Bliss could only swallow up and suppress some smaller guilds to strengthen itself during its development. A person's name, a tree's shadow. Right now, the Quanzhen sect was as famous as the sun in rebirth. They were just a small group of a dozen or so people, yet they dared to do as they pleased in a place like Afterglow City, where a big guild like the Blood Alliance was stationed. Even the Blood Alliance had to take a step back, so they definitely had some skill. Unless it was absolutely necessary, I really didn't want to fight with the Quanzhen sect. However, Wang Yu's blatant act of shielding had angered Rushiwa-1. "My name is Irushiwan. May I ask which expert from Chuanjin you are? To place one's pride or iron ox?" Chuanjin's people were so high profile, so of course they knew their background. Everyone knew that Chuanjin had 2 grandmasters of combat, and they were all 1 in a million experts. It was okay to offend the first one, but if they offended the second one, even if you had thousands of troops, you still had to be careful when you went out. Irushi had already made up his mind. If it was to place one's pride, he would kill him immediately. If it was Iron Ox, he would retreat and wait until he had enough people before killing him. "Iron Ox," Wang Yu said. Iron Ox, right? The grudge between Chuanjin and Pure Land of Bliss has been formed today. "What? You want to fight with me?" Wang Yu looked at me and asked. Let's go." Irushi was about to reach level 20, so he naturally didn't dare to fight with Wang Yu. He called his underlings and left in a hurry. TSK. The onlookers let out sounds of disdain. Initially, when they saw Ru Shirwan being so arrogant, they thought that he would dare to challenge his limits. Who knew that he would be such a coward? "Boss Iron Ox, it's all thanks to you this time." Seeing that the Gokura Kujodo's group had left, the thief thanked Wang Yu. "Because of me, you provoked the Gokura Kujodo. I'm really sorry." Wang Yu smiled and waved his hand. It doesn't matter. By the way, what's your name again?" "There's a fish in the North Sea," the thief said. "Yes, there's a fish in the northern underworld. Divide it and eat it." Wang Yu finally learned the name of this thief. "What's going on? It's so tragic." "Sai, don't mention it." Northern Sea Yu said gloomily, "The people from Elysium Pure Land want us to follow them, and they offered a high price. My members have all defected. TSK. How tragic. Who was that lady you stabbed to death just now?" "She was gritting her teeth when you killed her girlfriend." Northern CUU had a complicated look in her eyes. Sorry, my condolences." Wang Yu didn't know how to comfort Northern CUU at this time. No matter what, this brother was a mercenary king of his generation. His brother defected, and his wife ran away with someone else. This guy was definitely a jinx. If he said nonsense like "don't be sad at this time," it would be pure bullsh**T. "I'm an unlucky person," Northern CUU muttered in a deep voice. "I'll take my leave first. Otherwise, if you stay with me for too long, you'll be stained with the aura of misfortune." "Boss Iron Ox, I'll remember this time you saved me. If you need my help in the future, just let me know. Although I know that I'm trash, and with your strength, I might not be of much help." Northern CUU was really decadent. Otherwise, with his arrogant character, he definitely wouldn't say such depressing words. Wang Yu hurriedly said, "Don't go. There's no one to play with you anymore. Come to Chuanjin." "Forget it. I have too many enemies. I'm not popular. Don't make things difficult for me." Northern CUU sighed. Northern CUU was a professional player who killed people for a living. Now that her family had been annexed, she would definitely be kicked by others when she was down. She didn't want to drag Wang Yu down with her. Wang Yu laughed. These 2 points that you mentioned are common among the people in Xuanzhen. Wasn't that so? Those bastards in Xuanzhen were probably chased to the point that they couldn't go on any longer. That's why they formed a party. But Gokuraku Jodo. What's Gokuraku Jodo? Wang Yu asked. Northern Sioyu was completely conquered by Wang Yu's boldness. A big guild on the national server leaderboard was nothing in Wang Yu's eyes. How domineering was that? Of course, Wang Yu was a very humble person. At the same time, he was also a gamer. It was only after a long time that Northern Sioyu realized that Wang Yu really didn't know what Gokuraku Jodo was. All right, I'll join you guys. Northern Sioyu nodded her head firmly. Playing a game required an indomitable spirit. Wasn't Wang Yu's boldness the same as Northern Sioyu's hot-bloodedness? Wuji, give me the authority. I want to recruit an expert. Wang Yu shouted in the guild channel. System notification. You have become an official of Xuanzhen. System notification. Northern Sioyu has joined Xuanzhen. Everyone, welcome a newcomer. Everyone, hearing that there was a newcomer, everyone spoke up. Chun Xiang. Northern Sioyu? Male or female? Mingdu. Guys hand in their underwear. Girls report their measurements. Famous sword Daoshu. Could it be Mercenary King Northern Sioyu? Io. He's a famous person. Everyone said, no wonder Iron Ox has taken a liking to him. To place one's pride. Do you guys dare duel? Inlao Air. Do you guys want to bet? To place one's pride. You guys get lost. Skipping past the chatter, Northern Sioyu looked at the levels of the people in Xuanzhen. The first 8 were all level 20. Northern Sioyu was stunned. One had to know that even though they had 3 times the experience, it was still difficult to level up. Each main city only had a dozen or so people who had reached level 20. Who would have thought that in a small city like Xuanzhen, 2/3 of the people had already reached level 20? No wonder even Blood Alliance was suppressed by these people. How come you're only level 15? Wang Yu glanced at Northern Sioyu's level and asked curiously. Northern Sioyu said dejectedly, I've been chased for the past few days. I've almost lost all my equipment. All right, I won't ask. Wang Yu was speechless. This guy was really pitiful. Any random sentence from him could hit his sore spot. Later when we clear a dungeon, I'll get you some good equipment. Wang Yu said, Oh, what good items can Scarlet Church drop? Northern Sioyu pouted. In Rebirth, no matter what dungeon, only the first kill would give good items. Northern Sioyu was also an expert, so she naturally didn't care about normal trash. I don't know. We'll know when we get enough people and fight. Is it hard to get 5 people? Right now, there were many random parties outside Scarlet Church. Getting a dungeon was easier than eating a meal. We have to get 20. Wang Yu said, Is it a nightmare? Nightmare dungeons had a limit of 15 to 20 people. Chapter 163. Genius 1 Second Remember, providing you with exciting novels to read. Mu Zixian was a very sensible woman. Seeing that Wang Yu had met a friend, she didn't mention shopping anymore. Instead, she went to a nearby tavern sit and wait for everyone to come back. Actually, Baiming Yoyu and Wang Yu weren't very close. One was a complete enigma, and the other wasn't good at socializing. The scene was quite awkward. Luckily, Mu Zixian was with Wang Yu. She had endless things to say. Seeing the two of them flirting with each other, Baiming Yoyu, who was drinking to the side, tried to find something to talk about. This is my wife, Wang Yu said proudly. Wang Yu had 2 things that he was proud of. One was that he had top-notch martial arts, and the other was that he had a good wife. Sigh. Baiming Yoyu, who was looking for trouble, lowered her head and continued to drink. What happened to him? Mu Zixian asked privately. Wang Yu replied, My wife ran away with someone. My brother also ran away with someone. Oh. Mu Zixian looked at Baiming Yoyu sympathetically. Baiming Yoyu became even sadder. Time passed very quickly in the game. Mingdu was the first to finish his job change quest. He came to the tavern and saw Mu Zixian beside Wang Yu. He exclaimed in surprise, Old cow, who is this? Your sister-in-law. Wang Yu said, Hello, sister-in-law. You've changed since the last time I saw you, Mingdu said in a cheeky manner. Mu Zixian glared at Wang Yu angrily. Wang Yu said angrily, F***CK, you be **TCH. You even dare to mess with me, ha ha. Mingdu laughed and sat beside Wang Yu. He started to tease Bai Ming Yoyu. Fish, let's have a drink. My wife ran away with someone too. What a coincidence. Bai Ming Yoyu's expression turned ugly. Wang Yu held his forehead and sighed. This Mingdu really loved to tease cats and dogs. He had clearly instructed him just now. The efficiency of the Chuanjian experts was very fast. After waiting for another 2 hours, the others arrived one after another. After Wang Yu's introduction, everyone got to know each other. Mingdu even shamelessly hugged Bai Ming Yoyu's shoulder and said, Old Yu and I share the same fate. We are brothers. Don't try to steal. Chun Xiang said wretchedly. I also want to hug a new friend's shoulder, but it's not old Yu. Mu Zixian was shocked and said softly. So you are with this kind of person every day? No wonder you are getting worse. Wang Yu started to panic. He crushed a cup with his bare hands. Chun Xiang immediately shut up. When a main force of Chuanjian arrived, Wang Yu sent a message to Bloody Rose, Li Shui, and the others. Tiger and his friends lived in the faraway Tianfeng city and were on their way. Yang Na also said that she would come over soon. Li Shui and the others knew Bloody Rose and the others. They had been with Mu Zixian for a long time and had met Bai Ming Yoyu once before. There was no need for further introductions. When Bloody Rose and the others heard Bai Ming Yoyu's name, they were amazed. Although Bai Ming Yoyu kept a low profile and was not as ostentatious as the other members of Chuanjian, she was still a very impressive expert. This made the three of them have a new understanding of the power of Chuanjian. Literature building. After the ladies arrived, the animals of Chuanjian were extremely excited. Awesome! Uncle Nyo is too awesome. To place one's pride, excitedly mumbled. Guru Iron Ox is also a woman. In Lao Air did not understand. To place one's pride, what was he talking about? You didn't realize, right? All the ladies are related to Uncle Nyo. To place one's pride, excitedly clenched his fist. To place one's pride's words made everyone think it was true. Without Wang Yu, Li Shui and the others would not be able to enter Chuanjian. Without Wang Yu, Bloody Rose and the others would not be able to interact with Chuanjian. Mu Zixian was Wang Yu's wife. Everyone sighed. In online games, there were more men than women. However, Guru Iron Ox not only knew so many ladies, but so many of them were beautiful. How powerful was he? Could it be that God Nyo's greatest skill was in bed? Are there any more ladies? To place one's pride, asked Wang Yu. There's one more. Wang Yu answered honestly. To place one's pride, sincerely bowed to Wang Yu 3 times. Oh God Nyo, to let me and so many beauties clear dungeons together. Even if I die, it will be worth it. Wang Yu was speechless. What kind of nonsense was this? After waiting for a while, counterattack Tiger finally arrived. This guy was still the same as before. Behind him was an archer. The archer was not old. He looked to be about the same age as to place one's pride. He looked quite cute, but the look in his eyes when he saw the ladies ruined his cute image. When counterattack Tiger saw Chuanjian's people, he immediately pounced on them. He called them boss and was very intimate. The Chuanjian's people enjoyed it very much. When counterattack Tiger walked in front of Wuji, he pulled Wuji's hand and said excitedly, Boss Wuji, I'm your fan. Everyone shook their heads and sighed. I didn't expect such a shameless person to have fans. Where's the justice? Who is that little friend? Wang Yu pointed at the little brat archer and asked. The little wimp was obviously someone who was very familiar with people. When he saw the girls, he was like a tiger that was about to counterattack, directly pouncing over. Relying on his cuteness, he took advantage of the crowd of girls and was about to get close to Mu Zixian. Seeing the Chuanjian people's gloating expressions and Wang Yu's dark expression, the counterattacking tiger immediately understood what had happened. He reached out his hand to pull the little wimp over and introduced him to everyone. He's called by D. He is my cousin, White Emperor. Everyone was stunned when they heard counterattack Tiger's introduction. What? Do you know each other? Wang Yu asked. The circle of experts in the game was very small. It was normal for them to know each other. The Chuanjin people stared at Mingdu and said, "White Emperor becomes an arrow and goes berserk." The incomparable Li Jichang. Wang Yu scratched his head. "I don't understand. The first sentence refers to White Emperor. The second sentence should refer to Mingdu." Mu Zixian whispered, "I heard that these two don't get along." Although Mu Zixian was a customer service employee, she didn't play games much. Even she knew this sentence. It was clear that the two didn't get along. Sure enough, as soon as everyone said that, the two fellows looked at each other. F*CK. So you are a coward here. Do you dare to find an open place to fight me? Little brat, does Lordly need to pick a place to fight you? Do you dare to fight barehanded? The two started scolding each other, and the moment they opened their mouths, they displayed the highest level of despicable people. Mingdu had a skill that allowed him to cast spells barehanded, so he wasn't afraid of a brittle archer in a barehanded fight. Among all the professions, archers had the longest range and completely countered mages, but the little brat White Emperor wanted to fight with Mingdu in an open place. Speaking of which, Mingdu often said this. Everyone immediately understood where he was coming from. The two became more and more boisterous. It looked like they were really going to fight. Wang Yu grabbed them by their necks and threw them to the side. White Emperor was unconvinced. He pointed at Wang Yu and said, F*CK. Sneak attacking me? Do you dare to fight me one-on-one? Thought you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.